Chapter 702. Southern Viewing Continent. Endless Sky. Ancient City. Endless Sky. Ancient City was a city, but it wasn't devoid of mortals. Instead, it was filled with cultivators and Tao-seeking cultivators. Immortals, Buddhas, and demons coexisted here. Among the four great continents, Southern Viewing Continent was the most peaceful. Not only were there very few disputes, but immortals, Buddhas, and demons could coexist. This was a miracle in the three realms. Sky Below. Ancient City was a sacred place in the Southern Viewing Section continent. Its city lord Gu Tianlan was a golden immortal of the Great Principle. He was extremely famous in the entire Southern Viewing Section continent. It was also because of his existence that there were very few fights in the entire Sky Below. Ancient City. It had to be said that Gu Tianlan, a Daoyuo Jingxian, was able to make immortals, Buddhas, and demons coexist peacefully in Endless Sky City. A crescent moon hung in the sky, and the stars in the sky sprinkled starlight. It was currently night, but the entire Endless Sky Ancient City seemed unusually lively. The sound of firecrackers and fireworks interweaved in the sky above Endless Sky Ancient City, creating a peerlessly beautiful scene. A large number of cultivators shuttled back and forth, creating a lively atmosphere. Endless Sky Wine House. This was the most famous wine house in Endless Sky Ancient City, and it was also the place where immortals and demons lingered. This was because the wine here was brewed from the best spirit fruits. Not only did it give people a continuous aftertaste, but it was also extremely beneficial to one's cultivation. Of course, the price of this wine was naturally not cheap. Those who could enter here to enjoy it were at least immortals. The boss behind the scenes who opened this wine house was naturally the city lord Gu Tianlan. Guests, please come in. The waiter at the door was a nascent soul cultivator. At this moment, two black-clothed men wearing bamboo hats entered the wine house, causing him to quickly welcome them with a smile on his face. A jug of immortal wine, and 2 plates of spirit fruits. One of the black-clothed men spoke in a low voice. His body slightly moved to the side, and he modestly invited the person beside him to enter first. From this, it could be seen that the two were master and servant. The waiter didn't find their mysterious appearances strange. After all, he had received all kinds of strange people before. He didn't reveal the slightest bit of strangeness as he welcomed the two into the wine house. Although it was called a tavern, it was just an abbreviation. The Endless Sky Tavern was 9 stories tall, and its scale was extremely large. It could hold as many as 10,000 people. The first 3 floors received ordinary cultivators, and the higher they went, the more extraordinary the people they received. When the 2 black-clothed men reached the 3rd floor, they found a window seat and sat down. The 3-story tavern was very spacious, and there were over 100 cultivators drinking and exchanging toasts. However, there were not only humans among them, but also strange-looking demons. The arrival of the 2 black-robed men caused these cultivators to focus their gazes on them. After a brief glance, they shifted their gazes away. After passing Tianlan Ancient City, we will enter the Aparagodania continent. I didn't expect that when I was born again, I would coincide with Zhen Yuanzi's ginseng fruit meeting, the Kuanping said with a smile. Obviously, the 2 men wearing bamboo hats were Yi Xian and the Kuanping. They left the northern underworld sea and came all the way to the Aparagodania continent. Coincidentally, they passed by the Endless Sky City. At Yi Xian's suggestion, the 2 entered the city and stayed for a while. Although the ginseng fruit is good, it's useless to you and me. I'm wondering who will participate in this ginseng fruit meeting, Yi Xian said with a smile. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the Kuanping laughed and said, "This Zhen Yuanzi is known as the ancestor of earthly immortals. His magic skills are very impressive. I believe that as long as the sage-to-be zenith heavens are not cultivating in seclusion, they will definitely participate in this meeting." While the 2 were talking, the best spirit fruits and immortal wine were served. Although this wine was highly recommended by some heavenly immortals, Yi Xian was not interested in it at all. Instead, the Kuanping was tasting it with great interest. Obviously, he had been hiding in the northern underworld sea for a long time, and had not tasted something like spirit fruits and immortal wine for a long time. Some people might ask why Yi Xian and the Kuanping entered this tavern. In fact, the reason was very simple. Yi Xian had disappeared for 30,000 years and reappeared after 30,000 years. However, he did not know what had happened in this world during this time. Since ancient times, taverns and teahouses were well-informed places. This rule applied not only to mortals, but also to immortals. Since Tianlan Ancient City was a holy land for cultivators, they could naturally obtain some information that was useful to Yi Xian. Hey, have you heard? The ginseng fruit meeting will start in a year. All the zenith heavens will head to the Longevity Mountain. This meeting really makes us yearn for it. Brother, you must be joking. Immortals from the lower realm like us can only dream about it. The ginseng fruit is a sacred object of heaven and earth, and is also known as a panacea. Not to mention seeing it, even smelling it is a blessing that we have accumulated in our previous lives. Brother, please don't be delusional. Haha, a worthy younger brother is right. However, I heard that the Demon Emperor Di Jun will go to the Longevity Mountain in person this time. It is also rumored that the ancestor of Sorcerer Zhurong is also heading to the Longevity Mountain. Do you think there will be a great battle between the two? Sure. Brother, don't talk. One of the immortals' expression changed slightly. He hurriedly gestured for his companion to keep quiet before carefully reminding him in a low voice. Brother, please don't talk nonsense. You must know that the ancient demon court has reappeared in the world, and Queen Nuwa has even issued a decree. Now, billions of demons in the three realms have joined the ancient demon court, and the demon race's momentum has already reached the Tongtian. Once the Myriad Demon Conference starts, the ancient demon court will officially become the master of the three realms. The sorcerer race and the ancient demon court are like fire and water. Brother, please don't mention such a sensitive topic again. Otherwise, you and I can't afford to get into trouble. What's there to be afraid of? Right now only you and I are talking. No one else can hear our conversation. However, you said that the ancient demon court has regained control of the three realms of the heaven, earth, and man. What should the 33rd layer of the celestial court do? Legend has it that Yi Tiandi is not someone to be trifled with. Brother, you might not know this, but the 33rd layer of the celestial court has already activated the heaven protecting array. The so-called immortal officials have already disappeared from the world. How can the celestial court compare to the ancient demon court? Obviously, they are afraid of the ancient demon court. I'm afraid that after the Myriad Demon Conference, the 33rd layer of the celestial court will become a thing of the past. As for the so-called Yi Tiandi, there has been no news about him for tens of thousands of years. I'm afraid that he is hiding in the bullfighting palace, trembling in fear. When the immortal said that, he carefully looked around and continued in a low voice. Moreover, I heard that the immortal of the Jie school has already sent a congratulatory letter to the ancient demon court. Clearly, he has the intention of befriending the ancient celestial court. I'm afraid that Yi Tiandi, the heaven immortal sighed and did not continue. However, the meaning behind his words was clear. A worthy younger brother is right. Yi Xian once killed tens of thousands of people from the Magi race. Now, the 12 ancient ancestral Magi have appeared, and the ancient demon court is about to regain control of the three realms. With the support of the Chan school, he can be said to be attacked from both sides. I think his final outcome will be extremely miserable. The two of them drank and chatted. However, they did not know that their words had fallen into Yi Xian's ears. Chapter 703. Humph. Suddenly a cold snort sounded out. The Kuan-Pung glanced at the two of them, causing their expressions to change slightly. They felt an extremely terrifying aura press down on their minds, causing them to be unable to move at all. Two noisy ants. Are you two courting death? The Kuan-Pung spoke gloomily, as his eyes moved slightly, as if he would annihilate the two of them in the next moment. Obviously, the words of these two heavenly immortals were extremely disrespectful to Yi Xian. If he didn't say anything, could it be that Yi Xian had to make a move himself? Well, what are you doing? One of the heavenly immortals had a ghastly pale expression, as he knew that their conversation had definitely been heard. This caused the two of them to tremble as they asked this question. Obviously, they knew that they had caused trouble. All right. Suddenly, Before the Kuan-peng could make a move, Yi Xian patted him lightly on the shoulder, causing the Kuan-peng to withdraw his aura. However, a wisp of gloomy killing intent flashed past his eyes as he looked at the two of them. "Fellow Taoists, may I know if you two can come over for a chat?" Yi Xian smiled warmly as he looked at the two of them, and he gave off the feeling of a spring breeze and rain. "May I know who Senior is? If we brothers have offended you in any way, please forgive us." The two of them looked at each other before they stood up slightly and walked over to Yi Xian. They even bowed while their entire bodies became extremely reserved. The two of them couldn't be blamed for acting like this. No matter what, the two of them were heavenly immortals. However, a single glance from the Kuan-peng caused them to be unable to move. Obviously, the two mysterious figures before them were definitely great immortals, and they absolutely couldn't afford to offend them. "Fellow Taoists, there's no need to be nervous. I just want to ask about what major events have happened in the world in the past tens of thousands of years." Yi Xian nodded with a smile. The two heavenly immortals were slightly stunned when they heard Yi Xian's words. After that, they didn't dare be negligent in the slightest and hurriedly described the major events that had happened in the past tens of thousands of years. The first major event was that 10,000 years ago, Goddess Nuwa had issued a saint's decree to inform the demons of the three realms that the ancient demon court had reappeared in the world. They would once again take control of the three realms. This also made billions of demons submit. Countless Tongtian demon monarchs had joined the ancient demon court. The second major event also happened 10,000 years ago. The Magi lineage announced to the three realms that the 12 ancient ancestral Magi had returned. The Magi were about to reappear in the world. Countless great Magi roamed the three realms and recruited disciples without restraint. As for the third major event, it was Zhen Yuanzi's Ginseng Fruit Festival. However, compared to the reappearance of the Lich, the Ginseng Fruit Festival was not as eye-catching. Yi Xian nodded slowly as he listened to the two celestial immortals' narration. He was not surprised at all. Obviously, the Snow Charmer must have contributed to the delay in announcing Nuwa's decree to the three realms, and the return of the 12 ancient shamans was within reason. After all, he had killed his way into the ancestral land of the Magi in the past, and killed tens of thousands of Magi. Now that the ancient demon court had reappeared, if the ancestral Magi did not return, they would not be able to face the ancient demon court at all. Re-establish the demon court and take control of the three realms? Yi Xian muttered to himself. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then he looked at the two celestial immortals and said, "According to what you said, the ancient demon court will hold the myriad demon conference in 10,000 years and truly take control of the three realms, becoming the master of the three realms again?" "That's right. This is a decree personally issued by the two demon emperors. They will also invite the Daoyuo sage to be from all over. Legend has it that when the myriad demon conference begins, Goddess Nuwa will personally come. This is definitely not fake." The two celestial immortals hurriedly answered. Tap tap tap. Yi Xian's fingers tapped on the square table. There was always a warm smile on his face. However, those who knew him knew that every time Yi Xian's smile grew wider, it also meant that his killing intent was soaring. The support of the Chan sect, the arrival of thousands of demons, and the celestial immortals of the Jie sect. It seems that the ancient demon court is indeed the orthodox of heaven and earth. Is the 33 celestial court already a thing of the past? Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile became more and more mysterious. "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you talk about the Magi?" Suddenly celestial light appeared and the void rumbled. A dozen golden-armored soldiers in the distance suddenly stood up. Clearly, Yi Xian and the two celestial immortals did not hide their conversation. This naturally allowed the cultivators at the other tables to hear it. These golden-armored soldiers were the patrolling guards of Tianlan City. At this moment, when they heard Yi Xian and the others' discussion, they naturally slammed the table and stood up. The matter of the Magi was taboo and could not be mentioned in Tianlan City. This was also the decree of City Lord Gu Tianlan. He was afraid that it would bring trouble to Tianlan City. "Come with us." The golden-armored soldiers strode over. Each of them was a celestial immortal, In the blink of an eye, they surrounded Yi Xian and the others in the center. Kill them. Yi Xian frowned and said casually. Buzz. Time seemed to stop and space seemed to be frozen. This part of the void was extremely distorted. Kunpeng did not do anything, but when its eyes opened and closed, the laws of heaven and earth suddenly became violent. The golden-armored soldiers were instantly turned into ashes. They did not even have time to scream. Ah! Such a scene directly caused the surrounding cultivators to scream. All sorts of streaks of light rose up as they fled from the Endless Sky Tavern for their lives. As for the two heavenly immortals, they collapsed to the ground like mud, and their gazes towards Yi Xian were filled with extreme fear. How troublesome! Yi Xian slowly got up and strolled outside. He did not even look at the two celestial immortals. Kunpeng slowly followed behind him. Obviously, killing some ants did not cause any waves to him. Clang, clang, clang. The rapid sound of a bell rang in the sky above Tianlan City. Various streams of light shot out from the city lord's mansion. Obviously, such a big noise in Tianlan Tavern had alarmed the city lord's mansion. Who are you? Why are you killing people in my Tianlan city? Suddenly, a golden light rushed into the sky, followed by a large number of immortals. In an instant, they blocked Yi Xian and Kunpeng's path. It was Gu Tianlan, the city lord of Tianlan City. In the sky, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He did not expect that just asking for some information would cause a group of ants to be noisy. At this moment, hundreds of immortals surrounded Yi Xian and Kunpeng. Gu Tianlan frowned and looked at Yi Xian with a heavy look in his eyes. Strong, very strong. They were so strong that he could not see their cultivation at all. This was what Gu Tianlan felt at this moment. Gu Tianlan, a disciple of the Chan sect, had established his own orthodoxy in the Nanjiang department continent and built Tianlan City where immortals, demons and demons lived together. His cultivation was at the second heaven of Daluo, and his cultivation was the Disha's 72 transformations of Taoism. He could be said to be an extremely famous Daluo Jinxian in the Nanjiang department continent. However, he was in a heavy mood now because he felt a chill in his heart, and the source of this feeling was the two people he stopped. I am Gu Tianlan, the third disciple of the Emperor of the South Pole. May I know who you are? May I know your names? Gu Tianlan bowed. At this moment, he already regretted stopping the two people. However, the arrow was on the bow and had to be shot. He could only pretend to be calm and mentioned his master, hoping to make the two people afraid. Get lost, Kunpeng said gloomily. The so-called Daluo was no different from an ant in his eyes. The Emperor of the South Pole? Are you the old man of the South Pole of the Chan sect? Yi Xian slowly took off his bamboo hat and looked at Gu Tianlan calmly. When Yi Xian took off his bamboo hat, Gu Tianlan was also stunned, as if he had seen Yi Xian somewhere before. Suddenly, Gu Tianlan's expression changed greatly, and a large amount of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. It was because he finally remembered that when he participated in the Feast of Peaches, the person in front of him was Yi Tiandi of the Feast of Peaches. You are Yi Xian? No. Gu Tianlan was shocked. His face turned pale instantly, and he bowed to Yi Xian and said, Gu Tianlan greets the Celestial Emperor. I am asking you a question. Are you the disciple of the old man of the South Pole? Yi Xian still asked calmly, without any anger. Yes. Gu Tianlan trembled in fear. How could he not know the hatred between the Chan sect and Yi Xian? But he had just mentioned the old man of the South Pole, so it was impossible for him to deny it now. The Emperor of the South Pole, the old man of the South Pole. It seems that this old man led the Chan sect to join the ancient demon court. He is living a good life. So Tianlan City is also the orthodoxy of the Chan sect. Yi Xian smiled and said, Yes. Gu Tianlan braced himself and answered, but an extremely bad feeling suddenly rose in his heart. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. Suddenly, Yi Xian's smile disappeared. His voice was cold and cruel, as he slowly walked into the distance. However, mournful screams came from behind him. The entire Tianlan city was instantly reduced to ashes. It was unknown how many creatures had died in vain in Tianlan city. The 6 desires were merciless, and the heaven and earth were heartless. For Yi Xian, All his enemies could only be dead. If Gu Tianlan did not appear, Yi Xian had no intention to destroy the whole Tianlan city. However, Gu Tianlan courted death and admitted that this was the orthodoxy of the Chan sect. So, Yi Xian could only let the Kuimping destroy the Tianlan city. In the past, Yi Xian was afraid of Yuanshi Tianzuan behind the Chan sect. Although he suppressed the Chan sect, he still left some leeway. But now, he had become a sage-to-be and no longer had any scruples. He was gradually moving toward the sage realm. Since the Chan sect dared to join the ancient demon court and fight against him, they would only end up with the destruction of their sect. Destroying the Tianlan city was just an appetizer. In the future, Yi Xian would definitely let the Three Realms know who the real master of the Three Realms was. But before that, Yi Xian wanted to participate in the ginseng fruit meeting. He wanted to meet the so-called Emperor Jun and ancestor of sorcery, and see how powerful they were. Chapter 704. Longevity Mountain, Fifth Manor Temple. Zhen Yuanzi was known as the ancestor of earthly immortals, and was an extremely impressive figure. Since the beginning of the world, the Ginseng Fruit Festival he held was a grand event of the world. Anyone who could participate in the Ginseng Fruit Festival was an esteemed ancestor of the world. From this, one could see how extraordinary the Ginseng Fruit Festival was. The Gautama Buddha of the Western Heaven, the King of Hell, and the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals of various great orthodoxies had all arrived at the Five Villages Taoist Temple. However, the various sages-to-be had arrived late, and there was no sign of them yet. The Fifth Manor Temple did not seem big, but it was a world of its own. It was also a small world opened by Zhen Yuanzi. It was also known as the Qiankuan world, derived from Zhen Yuanzi's strongest abhijna, the Qiankuan sleeve. This was the place where the Ginseng Fruit Festival was held. Moreover, the ginseng fruit was planted in the Qiankuan world. It swayed gently in the breeze, allowing the fragrance of the ginseng fruit to drift in the Qiankuan world. There were 999 white jade tables that represented the extreme number of 9. At this moment, the tables were arranged according to the Taoist 8 trigrams formation. There was no other immortal fruit on the tables, except for a pot of immortal brew. This was a grand event of the world, and a gathering of the pinnacle figures of the Three Realms. The reason why the Ginseng Fruit Festival had such great appeal was not because of the ginseng fruit, but because of one person. That person was the great immortal Zhen Yuan. The ginseng fruit was a panacea that could raise Daoyuo Jinshin's cultivation by 1 level. However, those who could participate in the Ginseng Fruit Festival did not have much need for the ginseng fruit. It was even more useless for quasi-saints to consume it. However, the great immortal Zhen Yuan was the ancestor of earthly immortals, and was a figure who existed since the beginning of the world. He was a figure who met the origin of the world from the primordial times until the present. In the past, the Eastern Emperor Tai of the demon race was on good terms with him. The Ghost Emperor of the underworld was his close friend. It was even rumored that some of the 12 ancient shamans were his friends. He was smooth and slick and aloof, but was respected by all. This was the great immortal Zhen Yuan. Only he could have such great appeal, and gather all the mighty figures of the world. Under the ginseng tree, Zhen Yuanzi wore the purple gold 8 trigrams, his 3-foot-long black beard fluttering in the wind, as he greeted the various grand lua with a smile. Zhen Yuanzi did not put on any airs of a demi-saint. Whether it was a Western Buddha like Duobao Rulai or Daoyuo Jingxian, he treated them as equals, which made the various Daoyuo feel flattered. Those that understood Zhen Yuanzi knew that this earthly immortal ancestor was a good person that never competed with others, nor would he become enemies with others. Even if it was an ordinary immortal, he didn't put on any airs, and he would preach the Tao once every 10,000 years, to explain the Tao to some loose immortals of the demon race on the Tao of cultivation. Amipa. Greetings, great immortal Zhen Yuanzi. Duobao Rulai put his palms together and greeted Zhen Yuanzi. Greetings, senior Zhen Yuanzi. The South Pole immortal Wang, who was dressed in a white Taoist robe, bowed to Zhen Yuanzi. Greetings, fellow Taoists. Great immortal Zhen Yuan smiled, and invited the two into the ginseng fruit gathering without any arrogance. The various Grand Immortals were entering the ginseng fruit, gathering one after another. Grand Immortal Zhen Yuan, as the ancestor of earthly immortals and a quasi-saint, was here to welcome the guests. This truly made these Grand Immortals feel flattered. Haha! Suddenly, a burst of laughter rang out as the void swayed and rippled. A blue-robed Taoist walked out of the void and abruptly appeared before Great Immortal Zhen Yuan. It was none other than the mysterious Landia. Fellow Taoist, I Landia, don't have the fortune to receive you personally. Landia smiled calmly. Landia's appearance caused an uproar among the various Daluo. While they knew that a large number of demi-saints would be present at the ginseng fruit gathering, they didn't expect the legendary Landia to personally come to the Five-Manor Monastery. It's fine, it's fine. Zhen Yuanzi smiled. Clearly, he had known Landia for a long time, and the two of them were extremely close friends. Naturally, he wouldn't be as courteous as the others. Rumble. Suddenly, the heavens and earth rumbled in the distance. The ghostly fog that covered the sky surged as a skeletal war chariot rumbled over. The gloomy light that covered the sky was too dazzling. The Emperor of Fengdu, one of the Daluo Jingxian, recognized the carriage at a glance and muttered in shock. The various Daluo Jingxian also looked at the skeletal war chariot. The skeletal war chariot hung in the sky, as a majestic figure covered in gloomy light walked out of the war chariot. This person had sharp brows and starry eyes, giving off a sense of majesty without being angry. Just a glance at him would cause one's soul to palpitate, and cause a great sense of panic in one's soul. It was the Emperor of Fengdu, one of the 5 ghost emperors of the underworld. He ruled over the vast and boundless underworld, and was known to be in charge of the life and death of all living beings. He was a supreme figure. The Emperor of Fengdu walked slowly in the sky towards the Five-Manor Temple. There were 2 people accompanying him on his left and right. One of them was the Ghost Emperor of the East, Shen Tu, and the other was his direct disciple Huang Maji. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely realize that this Huang Maji was Fatso Huang of the past. He was also a hidden chess piece that he had planted in the underworld. Greetings, Emperor. Zhen Yuanzi smiled and bowed to the Emperor of Fengdu. Don't be like this, fellow Taoist. How would I dare to accept such a bow? The Emperor of Fengdu turned slightly and returned the bow to the grand deity Zhen Yuan. Although he was the supreme ghost emperor of the underworld, he did not show any arrogance in front of Zhen Yuanzi. He could not accept Zhen Yuanzi's bow. After all, they were both figures from the primeval age. Zhen Yuanzi was known as the ancestor of earthly immortals in the primeval age, while the Emperor of Fengdu was just a nobody back then. Although he later became the ruler of the underworld, he still had to maintain a sense of humility in front of the grand deity Zhen Yuan. Please come in, fellow Taoist. Zhen Yuanzi smiled and invited the Emperor of Fengdu and Landia to enter the ginseng fruit gathering together. It was also at this moment that the various Grand Luo stood up and bowed to the 2 demi-saints. They did not dare to show any disrespect. One was the extremely mysterious Lord of the Dao Landia. The other was the Emperor of Fengdu who ruled the underworld. They were both supreme figures in the world. How could these Grand Luo compare to them? What a lively ginseng fruit gathering. How could I not participate? When the 2 demi-saints entered, a golden sun rose in the east. The light that illuminated the 3 realms was too bright and too dazzling. There were even rumbling sounds in the world. 9 fire dragons roared in the distant sky. They pulled a golden jade carriage and rolled over. A majestic golden figure was coiled in the golden jade carriage. Anyone who looked at him would feel an extremely heavy feeling. Di Jun of the Demon Clan. A Grand Luo said with a trembling voice. Everyone in the ginseng fruit gathering stood up. Clearly, the Demon Clan's celestial emperor had arrived. No one dared to slight him. Old Minister Fengdu greets the celestial emperor. The immortal elder of the South Pole had already led the Chanism to join the ancient demon court. He was even conferred the title of Emperor of the South Pole. When Di Jun walked out of the golden jade carriage, this person quickly went to greet him and even bowed. Chapter 705. Today is the ginseng fruit gathering organized by Taoist Zhen Yuan. Let's dispense with the formalities. Emperor Jun, who was wearing golden armor and a golden sun emperor crown, smiled. Greetings, Heavenly Emperor. All the zenith heavens bowed. The ancient demon court was extremely powerful now, and they were about to regain control of the heaven and earth three realms. They did not dare to overstep their boundaries. Greetings, Taoist friends. Emperor Jun strode over with the aura of a heavenly emperor. He first cupped his hands at Jin Yuanzi, then nodded at Landia, and the emperor of Feng Du roar. Suddenly an earth-shattering roar was heard. A cloud of fire rose in the sky, and a figure as red as fire rolled over with a domineering aura. Umph! Such a scene made Emperor Jun's face turn cold. He snorted and squinted his eyes at the newcomer. Boom! The earth shook, and the heavenly fire burned the sky. A red-haired, red-bearded man walked over. As the fire dissipated from his body, he appeared in the ginseng fruit gathering. I was wondering who it was. So it's you, the three-legged golden crow. Zhurong, the ancestral witch of fire, controlled the fire essence of heaven and earth, and was one of the 12 ancestral witches. He was definitely a top figure in the three realms. When he saw Emperor Jun, he said coldly, "Do you want to die?" Being insulted by Zhurong in front of all the zenith heavens sage-to-be, Emperor Jun's face turned cold. A golden sun anomaly rose behind him, and he looked at Zhurong with great murderous intent. Both of them controlled the fire essence of heaven and earth. Zhurong was known as the ancestral witch of fire, while Emperor Jun was born from the sun skyfire. His original form was the ancient golden crow. There was a great war in the untainted land in the past. Because of the hatred between the witches and demons, the two of them had great enmity. Taoist friends, please calm down. Suddenly, Zhen Yuanzi stood between them and made a Taoist bow to them, which made Zhurong and Emperor Jun snort and withdraw their qi. Obviously, the hatred between the shamans and demons was deep. However, today was Jin Yuanzi's event. If they fought in the host's house, wouldn't it be a slap to Jin Yuanzi's face? The two of them couldn't do such a thing. Moreover, the two of them had their own reasons for participating in the ginseng fruit meeting. They didn't want to fight to the death as soon as they met. Humph, for the sake of fellow Taoist Jin Yuan, I won't lower myself to your level. Emperor Jun sneered and walked into the ginseng fruit meeting. How pretentious. Under Zhen Yuanzi's invitation, Zhurong joined the ginseng fruit gathering as well. However, the presence of the two at the same time gave the other grand heavenly immortals a great deal of pressure. Under the ginseng fruit tree, Zhen Yuanzi was still welcoming the guests. As time passed, two more pre-saints arrived. However, these two pre-saints weren't famous. One of them was called Ancestor Wanxiang, and the other was called Qing Tian Taoist. They had just entered the pre-saint realm, and couldn't be compared to Emperor Jun and the others from the primeval age. Rumble! Suddenly, the five-colored divine light covered the sky and earth. A figure was strolling in from the horizon. This attracted the attention of all the guests. Kong Xian? He has entered the pre-saint realm? Duo Bao Rilai's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed. This person was Kong Xian, who had been severely injured by De Yi in the past. However, after 30,000 years, not only did he not die, but he had also entered the pre-saint realm. Obviously, Kong Xian must have encountered a great opportunity during his disappearance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have entered the pre-saint realm. Great! Grand deity Zhen Yuan smiled softly. Emperor Jun and the others frowned and looked at Kong Xian. Greetings, Taoist Jin Yuan. Kong Xian strolled in the sky. The five-colored divine light rippled slightly, causing the void to distort. The most shocking thing was that the spiritual treasures beside the Grand Luo and pre-saints present were trembling slightly, as if they had met their natural enemy. Congratulations on becoming a quasi-saint, fellow Taoist. From now on, you'll be free to do whatever you want. There's another supreme quasi-saint in this world. Taoist Luya walked over quickly and congratulated Kong Xian with a smile. Kong Xian was the first five-colored peacock in the world. His five-colored divine light could wipe out everything. He was an extremely terrifying figure. He was also a figure from the primeval age. However, he had been shackled at the peak of the Grand Luo realm. When he entered the pre-saint realm, there was an earth-shattering change. His five-colored divine light would become the nightmare of all the pre-saints. Kong Xian was very powerful. He was a creature from the primeval age, and was the darling of the world. Even Emperor Jun and Zhurong's expressions changed slightly. They looked at Kang Xian with a slightly solemn expression. The five-colored divine light could wipe out everything. Any spiritual treasure in the world was useless in front of Kang Xian. Just this ability alone was enough to make people feel extremely fearful. Kang Xian had also cultivated for countless years, but once he stepped into the quasi-sage realm, he was definitely not someone ordinary quasi-sages could compare to. "Greetings, Taoist Landia." Kang Xian smiled and bowed to Landia. However, he didn't look at Zhurong and Emperor Jun from beginning to end. It was as if he treated them like air. Obviously, Yi Xian and the Wu tribe were enemies. The ancient demon court was about to regain control of the heaven and earth realms. In the future, they could only be Yi Xian's enemy. Why would Kang Xian take the initiative to greet them? "Fellow Taoist, please take a seat." Great Immortal Zhen Yuan nodded and smiled. This also allowed Kang Xian to walk into the Ginseng Fruit Association and sit directly in the first row. He closed his eyes slightly as if he was resting. At this moment, the Ginseng Fruit Association was full. Everyone who should have come had already arrived. Only the seat left for Yi Xian was empty. Obviously, Yi Xian was the only one who was missing at this moment. Under the ginseng fruit tree, Great Immortal Zhen Yuan waited patiently. Landia stood beside him and frowned slightly. At this moment, he secretly sent a voice transmission to Great Immortal Zhen Yuan. "It seems that Yi Xian won't come. You and I don't have to wait any longer." Hearing Landia's voice transmission, Great Immortal Zhen Yuan nodded slowly. It was obvious that the time had passed, but Yi Xian still hadn't appeared. It seemed that he really wouldn't come. "Children, play music," the Great Immortal Zhen Yuan whispered. The Taoist children of the Fifth Manor Temple had already started playing celestial music. Dozens of Taoist children held trays with all kinds of spiritual herbs, ginseng, and fruits on them. They were delivered to the guests one by one. Zhen Yuanzi sat cross-legged under the ginseng fruit tree. When he waved his sleeve, a table appeared out of thin air. He slowly raised the wine cup on the table and toasted the Zenith Heaven quasi-sages present. The Ginseng Fruit Association opens once every 100,000 years. I've gathered fellow Taoists from all over the three realms in the name of peace. I'll toast everyone. As Great Immortal Zhen Yuan spoke, he gently covered the wine cup with his sleeve and drank all the wine. Immortal music played, and spiritual light was misty. Dozens of immortal cranes swam in the sky, and auspicious gas rose in the void. The Zenith Heaven quasi-sages raised their wine cups one by one. The Ginseng Fruit Association officially began. Chapter 706. The myriad spiritual medicine ginseng fruit was a sacred item of heaven and earth. It melted in one's mouth, leaving a lingering fragrance in one's mouth. It could also make one's cultivation progress greatly. Under Zhen Yuanzi's courtesy, the guests tasted the ginseng fruit one by one. All sorts of immortal and demon lights bloomed, causing the entire five-manor temple to fall into a beautiful immortal realm. The great immortal Zhen Yuan sat cross-legged beneath the ginseng tree, imparting his teachings with the earth scroll in his hand. The grand immortal of the various factions listened with rapt attention, and even the demi-saints nodded to themselves, secretly admiring the great immortal Zhen Yuan's understanding of the Tao. Zhen Yuanzi could be called the ancestor of earthly immortals, so he was naturally not an ordinary person. Every time the ginseng fruit gathering opened, he would impart the teachings. This was also the convention of the gathering. Of course, the reason why the ginseng fruit gathering could become a grand event was not only because of the grand deity Zhen Yuan's teachings, but also because the quasi-saints present had to come out and share their understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. This was also a rule of the ginseng fruit gathering. It was also because of the many quasi-saints imparting their teachings in the ginseng fruit gathering, which benefited countless grand luo. This was also the reason why the ginseng fruit gathering became a grand event of heaven and earth. The grand deity Zhen Yuan only finished his preaching after 7 days had passed. He smiled at the quasi-saints present and said with a warm voice, "I've embarrassed myself. I wonder if any of you would like to come forward and impart your teachings? I have a technique that I can show to all of you." As Taoist Luya strolled over, the various grand heavenly immortals and demi-saints focused their attention on him. After all, Taoist Luya was extremely mysterious, and his mantras and abilities were even more impressive. Thus, everyone focused their attention on him. This technique is neither a Tao skill nor a Tao skill. It's a technique about the application of the laws of heaven and earth. As Taoist Luya spoke tirelessly, many miraculous scenes appeared. Streams of laws of the world surged in the void, and mysterious Tao sounds faintly rang out. Land Yu preached for 7 days. The entire 5-manor temple was immersed in the surging of the laws of heaven and earth. When the 8th day arrived, he had finished his preaching. However, there was a big Luo who was in a state of epiphany in the ginseng fruit festival. He even broke through 1 level of cultivation in an instant. Fellow cultivator Land Yu's cultivation base is so profound, Dijun suddenly said with a hint of admiration in his eyes. This humble Taoist will embarrass himself. Taoist Land Yu smiled and left the ginseng fruit tree. It was also at this moment that the Emperor of Fengdu stood up. He did not seem to have done anything, but he casually threw out a glowing ghost talisman. The ghost talisman had a strange aura, but there was a ghostly wail coming from it. This is my 5-direction ghost talisman. If anyone can comprehend the supernatural powers within, they can take it. I will not pursue the matter, the Emperor of Fengdu said coldly. Hua! A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Every big Luo cried out in surprise. Even the seated demi-saints looked at the Emperor of Fengdu with a strange expression. It was no wonder everyone reacted that way. The 5-direction ghost talisman was the symbol of the Emperor of Fengdu. It was even rumored that his supernatural powers came from the 5-direction ghost talisman. Now that he had taken it out for others to comprehend, it was simply unimaginable. Without any hesitation, every big Luo present began to comprehend the 5-direction ghost talisman. This instantly silenced the entire ginseng fruit festival. After an entire 7 days of time, an enormous bang resounded out, and King Chu Jiang, who sat at the table, suddenly opened his eyes. His entire body blazed with a gloomy light, and he seemed to have comprehended some sort of formidable divine ability from the 5-directional talisman. Thank you for granting my wish, Emperor. King Chujiang's face was filled with excitement. He even knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the Emperor of Fengdu. The Emperor of Fengdu kept the 5-direction ghost talisman, which disappointed the big Luo present. Clearly, the 5-direction ghost talisman was only useful to ghost immortals. Everyone present was of the immortal demon realm. Although the Emperor of Fengdu generously took out the 5-direction ghost talisman, 7 days was not enough for them to comprehend any supernatural powers of the ghost Tao. What happened next was simple. The 2 ordinary quasi-saints, Patriarch Wanxiang and Taoist Qing Tian, shared their comprehension of becoming a quasi-saint. However, everyone who could become a quasi-saint was unique, so it was useless to the big Luo present. Forgive me for my incompetence. Dijun finally stood up. A smile appeared on his face. He immediately threw out a golden jade pendant. Ancient demon runes appeared in the void. The Great Sun Heavenly Sun technique is the supreme technique of the demon race. Any demon who cultivates this technique will be able to reach the pinnacle of Big Luo without any shackles, Dijun said proudly. He looked around at the big Luo present, and his heavenly emperor aura spread out. Hiss! Gasps could be heard continuously. The Grand Luo present looked at Dijun with great surprise. One should know that if the Great Sun Heavenly Sun technique was cultivated to greater mastery, one could directly condense the true sun flame. This was a secret technique unique to the ancient demon court, and now Dijun had taken it out. The big Luo demon kings present were very excited. They all bowed 3 times to Dijun, and quickly comprehended the Great Sun Heavenly Sun technique. However, the other big Luo immortals were hesitant. They did not know if they should comprehend this technique. This was because this was a secret technique of the ancient demon court. If they really cultivated it, they would be branded with the ancient demon court's brand. If they did not join the ancient demon court in the future, it would be very troublesome. Clearly, Dijun had taken out this technique to subdue the great Luo present. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that. Humph, shameless people. Suddenly Zhurong snorted. He did not do anything, but he threw out a spiritual bead. His voice was as heavy as a mountain. 9 heavens arcane fire bead. It contains the power of 9 heavens arcane fire. Anyone who can absorb the power of the arcane fire can take it. Dijun and Zhurong attacked at the same time. A strange atmosphere grew in the ginseng fruit gathering. There was also the smell of gunpowder. Celestial Emperor, there is no need to lower yourself to Zhurong's level. Let's get down to business. The immortal hermit of the South Pole secretly transmitted his voice to Dijun. Dijun nodded slowly, ignoring Zhurong's provocation. Fellow Taoists, you should know that the ancient demon court will officially take control of the 3 realms 10,000 years later. At that time, Nuwa will also appear personally. Billions of demons will return to the ancient demon court, and the glory of the past will be recreated. As Dijun spoke, all the big Luo quasi-saints listened attentively. This made Dijun smile and continue. Today, I formally invite everyone to participate in the demon gathering 10,000 years later. The ancient demon court will also become the ruler of the 3 realms once again. As Dijun's words fell, the Emperor of Fengdu's eyes turned cold. However, he did not refute. Zhurong sneered, but there was fear in his eyes. Clearly, Dijun was summoning the ancient demon court to be the rightful ruler of the 3 realms. The ancient demon court would be the ruler of the 3 realms. What a joke! If the ancient demon court is the ruler of the heaven and earth, then what is the celestial court? Suddenly, when everyone was silent, a cold voice quietly sounded. This made Dijun's expression change, and he looked toward the source of the voice. Kong Xian, are you provoking me? Dijun's eyes were gloomy. Others may be afraid of you, Dijun, but I, Kong Xian, do not take you seriously. Kong Xian stood up, and the 5-colored divine light soared into the sky. Although Kong Xian had just become a sage to be, he and Dijun were from the same era. His foundation had already accumulated to an extremely terrifying level. When he became a sage to be, although he was still not Dijun's match, it was wishful thinking for Dijun to kill him. Haha! Suddenly, Dijun laughed, but his laughter was extremely contemptuous. He said disdainfully, "It seems that you are standing up for Yi Xian? What a pity. Yi Xian is just an undeserved reputation." This time, he did not even dare to participate in the ginseng fruit meeting. How can the celestial court he leads compare with the ancient demon court? Or, do you think that he dares to appear in front of me? Dijun sneered. From the beginning to the end, he had not taken Yi Xian seriously. When the ancient demon court reappeared in the world, the 33rd celestial court had been holed up, which made him mistakenly think that Yi Xian was just a puppet celestial emperor. Ha! Suddenly a chuckle rang out. This laughter was filled with mockery, and it rang in everyone's ears. This caused the expressions of everyone present to change drastically. No one knew who dared to laugh out loud at this moment. Who is it? Dijun's expression turned cold, and he wanted to find the source of the laughter. Are you looking for me? Suddenly, a calm voice came from behind Emperor Jun. Emperor Jun turned around in horror, and looked at the person who had just come. With his cultivation, he didn't know when someone was standing behind him. How could he not be terrified? Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his gray hair hung behind his head. A cool breeze blew past, causing his hair to flutter in the wind. At this moment, he was calmly looking at Dijun, and there was no aura around him. A worthy younger brother? When Yi Xian suddenly appeared, Kong Xian exclaimed, "Grand Immortal Zhen Yuan and Taoist land," you were even more surprised, because even they did not see how Yi Xian appeared in front of them. Has he stepped into the sage to be? Zhen Yuanzi's eyes froze, and a trembling voice came from his mouth. He was completely stunned, and his mind was in turmoil. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely complicated expression, which showed how emotional he was at this moment. Chapter 707. If one were to say that since the creation of the world, anyone's talent could be said to be unprecedented, then there would definitely be a place for Yi Xian. Ever since Yi Xian appeared in the Earth Immortal realm, he was only at the Grand Unity stage. However, after 100,000 years, he was already ranked among the quasi-saints. This was simply a miracle, and it could even be called an immortal legend. No one had ever become a sage to be, in just 100,000 years. However, when Yi Xian appeared in the ginseng fruit meeting, Everyone present had mixed feelings. As the old saying went, comparisons are odious. Immortal Zhen Yuan had watched Yi Xian grow, from an insignificant immortal to a sage-to-be. Therefore he was touched the most. Landia was speechless. The emperor of Feng, Du, was scrutinizing Yi Xian. The ancestor of sorcery of Zhurong was also looking at Yi Xian with narrowed eyes. Everyone had a serious look in their eyes. All the sage-to-be present were extraordinary people. Although Yi Xian did not release any power, Yi Xian's appearance alone gave them a sense of oppression. "Who are you?" Suddenly, Emperor Jun asked in a low voice, as if he really did not know Yi Xian's identity. He looked at Yi Xian with a condescending attitude. Although Emperor Jun had never seen Yi Xian before, someone present had called out Yi Xian's name. This also made him know that Yi Xian was the master of the 33rd Celestial Court, the so-called Celestial Emperor in this world. However, even though he knew, Jun still didn't place Yi Xian in his eyes. After all, he really didn't believe that a mere junior could be his match. Moreover, in Emperor Jun's mind, the 33rd Celestial Court would disappear sooner or later, because there could only be one Celestial Court in this world. Yi Xian would eliminate it sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. The two Celestial Emperors were confronting each other. The atmosphere of the ginseng fruit meeting suddenly became heavy. All the almighty sage-to-be focused their attention on the two, wondering how Yi Xian would deal with Emperor Jun. Unfortunately, Yi Xian only glanced at Emperor Jun. His eyes were extremely calm, as if he ignored Emperor Jun directly. He did not answer Emperor Jun's question at all. "I'm asking you a question. Didn't you hear me?" Emperor Jun's voice gradually turned cold, with a hint of reproach. "Get lost." It was just a simple word from Yi Xian's mouth, but it was like a clap of thunder in the ears of all the almighty sage-to-be. They looked at Yi Xian with a great change of expression. It was no wonder that they reacted this way. In their hearts, Tong Tian, the power of the ancient demon court, and hundreds of millions of demon tribesmen, had already joined the ancient demon court. They also had the support of Sage Nuwa, and the bloodline of the Chan sect had also joined the ancient demon court. This also proved Yuanshi Tianzuan's attitude. Although Yi Xian had entered the sage-to-be realm, he had just entered the sage-to-be realm. How could he compare with the two demon emperors? Moreover, the attitude of the Jie sect was ambiguous now, and the immortals of the Jie sect were on good terms with the ancient demon court. Perhaps this also represented Tongtian's attitude. Moreover, Yi Xian had killed tens of thousands of people of the Wu tribe. He had long been an enemy of the Wu tribe. At this moment, he was already an enemy of the whole world. Perhaps one day he would be buried between heaven and earth. However, no one had expected that Yi Xian would still be so arrogant in such a situation. Was he not afraid that Jun would suppress him on the spot? All sorts of discussion sounded out. Everyone looked at Yi Xian with extremely complicated gazes. Some were helpless, some were pitiful, and some were even gloating. It was as if they could already see that Jun would attack in a rage and suppress Yi Xian here in the next moment. "Are you courting death?" Sure enough, Jun's face was extremely gloomy. When he opened and closed his eyes, two golden suns rumbled and rotated in the bottom of his eyes, causing the world to rumble and explode. The world gradually began to shake. "If I were you, I wouldn't talk so much nonsense," Yi Xian said calmly. He looked at Jun as if he was looking at a dead man. His voice was emotionless, as if he did not care about Jun at all. "You're courting death." Jun's true form was the first three-legged golden crow, since the creation of heaven and earth. He was even born extraordinary in the heavenly fire of the sun. His magic skills were considered to be the best in the three realms. Boom! A golden sun rose. Tongtian flames burned the sky. A three-legged golden crow condensed behind Jun. With an earth-shattering cry, Jun moved his palm and slapped toward Yi Xian. "Retreat!" Jun attacked violently. All the Daluo experts scattered in panic. Only the sages to be present had a slight change in expression. Each of them performed their magic skills to protect the fifth manor. "Let's see how capable you are." Suddenly, Yi Xian let out a low roar. He didn't use any kind of technique, but he took a step forward and shot towards Jun. directly ignoring the giant palm that the emperor had slapped down on him. The void collapsed and exploded. Yi Xian seemed to have broken through the barrier of time and space. He appeared in front of Di Jun in an instant. Yi Xian's lips curled into a sinister smile. He swung his right fist and slammed it toward Di Jun. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and the mountains and rivers shook. Di Jun's expression changed greatly. He turned his palm into a fist and hurriedly met Yi Xian's attack. When the two fists collided, the void began to collapse. Extremely terrifying spatial cracks appeared, as if they were going to pierce through heaven and earth. Get lost! Yi Xian's physical body was comparable to that of an ancestral sorcerer. Moreover, his cultivation had already stepped into the sage's to-be realm. Although Di Jun's original body was a three-legged golden crow, and his physical body was extremely strong, he was still inferior to Yi Xian. Crack! Ugh! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Di Jun let out a muffled groan. His fists were cracking inch by inch. Strands of golden blood were flowing out from his fists. Apparently, he was at a disadvantage in the contest of physical strength. However, this was not the end. What happened next stunned everyone. They could not believe their eyes, and felt as if they had fallen into a dream. Little bastard, I'll suppress you here today. Yi Xian roared in a low voice. His fists were like a millstone of the heavens and earth. When he swung his arms, it was as if he'd brought the heavens and earth with him, as he smashed down towards the monarch with a mighty force that could suppress the heavens and earth. Bang! 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 The sky was filled with fist radiance like the 9 heavens, and the divine light that could explode heaven and earth shattered the void. Yi Xian's body was glowing. This was a kind of light that could hold up heaven and earth. It gave people a feeling that he was indestructible, and made Di Jun retreat step by step. Ugh! Di Jun was caught in a great tribulation. He crossed his arms and released chaotic divine light to protect himself. However, Yi Xian's physical body was too strong. Di Jun's fists were like chaotic divine mountains that were smashing toward him. Di Jun was too careless. He was so careless that he did not regard Yi Xian as his opponent. He even fought with Yi Xian with his physical body, which put him at a disadvantage. At this moment, it was extremely difficult for him to escape from Yi Xian's attack. Chapter 708. Crack! Golden blood splattered everywhere, as he let out a mournful roar. Di Jun's arms had already cracked, and golden blood was currently flowing out. This was caused by Yi Xian's smashing, causing his arms to faintly distort in an irregular manner. If this continued, he would definitely be suppressed by Yi Xian on the spot. What a terrifying body! What kind of skill does he practice? Suddenly, the eyes of Zhu Rong, who was watching from afar, froze. A trace of bewilderment flickered in his eyes, and his gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with astonishment. No one knew Emperor Jun's cultivation better than Zhu Rong. They had fought a great battle in the past. Although Emperor Jun's body of the demon clan was not as strong as that of the ancestor of sorcery, he was by no means weak. Even Zhu Rong could not force Emperor Jun to such an extent. But what did he see? He could not believe that there was another creature in this world whose body was comparable to that of the ancestor of sorcery, except for the 12 ancestors of sorcery. Golden Crow deception skill. Suddenly, under Yi Xian's ferocious suppression, Di Jun let out a furious roar. His entire body suddenly became illusory and directly transformed into a golden light that disappeared. When he reappeared, he'd already left the battlefield. Such a scene caused Yi Xian's expression to slightly change. He looked at Di Jun in astonishment before his expression returned to normal. It was obvious that Di Jun wasn't simple. He must have used some sort of secret technique to escape his suppression. What a Golden Crow deception skill. I didn't expect to see this kind of supreme skill of the demon clan again, after so many years, Lan Yu praised. Obviously, he recognized the supreme skill of the demon clan that Emperor Jun had used. In terms of the 3 realms of heaven, earth and man, few people can be compared with Emperor Jun's Tongtian. I heard that he has cultivated all 108 supreme skills of the demon clan. Yi Xian is no match for him. The Emperor of Feng Du said softly. That's right, Di Jun's strength isn't his physical body. His demon race's divine abilities are unfathomable, and this is his true combat strength. Although Yi Xian seems to have the upper hand, it's only because Di Jun was careless. Zhu Rong nodded. Although Emperor Jun was the enemy of the sorcerer tribe, Zhu Rong approved of his cultivation. That was because Zhu Rong had been defeated by Emperor Jun's Tongtian skill of the demon clan in the past. It is said that the ancient demon court had a total of 108 skills, and each of them was an unparalleled killing skill. It is said that Emperor Jun had mastered all 108 skills, and even used himself as a formation to integrate the 108 skills of the demon clan into himself, creating a unique killing skill in the world. I wonder if this is true. Ancestor Wanxiang, who had just become a sage-to-be, asked in confusion. Unfortunately, no one could answer him because this was only a legend. No one had ever seen Emperor Jun use this technique. Today I want you to die. Suddenly, Emperor Jun raised his palm and roared. He looked at Yi Xian with extreme anger. The stars in the sky flickered, and starlight poured down like a long river in the 9 heavens. His robe fluttered in the absence of wind, and a starry heavenly blade gathered in the sky until it was thousands of miles long, spanning between heaven and earth. 9-star immortal vanquishing blade? Another demon clan's great art. What a terrifying demon clan's heavenly emperor! Qing Tian Daoist murmured in a trembling voice. He looked at Emperor Jun with great respect, because he could feel that if he were to face Emperor Jun, he would be killed by Emperor Jun in a matter of minutes. Emperor Jun of the Demon Clan is the only one in all of history. This is not a compliment to Emperor Jun's strength, but to tell the world that Emperor Jun has dabbled in all the skills in the world, and is the only one who has cultivated all 108 Demon Clan's great arts. Daoist Luya praised and explained the Emperor Jun's true strength to the various grand heavenly immortals who were watching the battle. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes slightly narrowed as a wisp of primal chaos mist rose into the air. The entire world suddenly darkened, and bolts of primal chaos lightning were born out of thin air, tearing open an enormous gap in the world. The spatial cracks were too terrifying, as if they were the mouths of Taotais that were choosing people to devour, wanting to devour all living things. Blade come. Suddenly, Yi Xian stretched his 5 fingers toward the sky, and an extremely terrifying thing happened. Rumble! The heavens shook, and the sun and moon hung upside down. A wisp of chaotic fog came from beyond the sky, carrying with it an aura that could bury all things. The fog continued to condense until it turned into a heaven-cleaving blade that covered the boundless sky. Clang! Clang! The blade radiance shook the past and present, and a baleful aura spread across the 3 realms. The heaven-cleaving blade buzzed, and streaks of baleful aura rippled from the blade, as if it was tearing the world apart and isolating the laws of heaven and earth. What technique is this? The patriarch of myriad creations' expression changed drastically. He had never heard of such a technique that Yi Xian had used before. It was neither an immortal nor a demon nor a ghost, but it gave off an extremely terrifying feeling, as if his soul was about to be torn apart by the heaven-cleaving blade. Primal chaos, divine law. Landia enunciated each word clearly, and his eyes were shining as he stared at Yi Xian in shock. As soon as he finished speaking, the Daoyuo from all sides were in an uproar, and even the other demi-saints had a slight change in expression. What is a chaotic divine technique? The patriarch of myriad creation humbly asked for guidance. After all, he had just become a demi-saint, and had only heard of chaotic divine techniques by chance, but he did not know what kind of technique it was. Chaotic divine techniques are techniques from beyond the heavens. They do not adhere to the laws of the 3 realms, and possess unimaginably terrifying power. However, chaotic divine techniques are extremely rare in the 3 realms, so where did this Yi Xian come from? The Emperor of Fengdu frowned, and his voice was unfathomable. He looked at Yi Xian with a hint of seriousness in his eyes. So what if it's a chaotic divine technique? Before the unparalleled technique of the demon race, I will definitely kill you between heaven and earth. Di Jun bellowed in disdain. Even if Yi Xian had used a chaotic divine technique, he was still fearless because he was a heavenly emperor of the demon race, and a rare genius of the ages. He could be said to be the most outstanding person of the demon race. He had cultivated all 108 secret techniques of the demon race, and he could use them at his fingertips. No one could resist his divine techniques and secret techniques. This was his invincible confidence, and also the foundation of his foundation in the three realms. Otherwise, how could he become one of the two heavenly emperors of the demon race? The two heavenly emperors faced each other in the void, and an earth-shattering battle was about to break out. The two supreme techniques clashed head-on, and the next moment, an apocalyptic scene would appear. Suddenly, at this most critical moment, a figure stepped into the sky and stood calmly between the two. His purple-gold bagua robe fluttered slightly in the violent wind. Heaven and earth were changed, and all living things disappeared. An extremely terrifying thing happened. A sleeve covered heaven and earth, and the two supreme techniques were defeated. This world instantly became clear, and there was no longer any power remaining. Silence, silence, a deathly silence. When this scene appeared, the various grand heavenly immortals were shocked speechless. Several demi-saints stood up and looked at the void in horror. A hint of seriousness flashed across their eyes. Chapter 709. Zhen Yuanzi deserves to be called the ancestor of earthly immortals. Jerome clenched his fists and said in a trembling voice, "What a great heaven and earth sleeve technique. Even the peerless technique condensed by two sages to be was wiped out. Zhen Yuanzi is really powerful." The Emperor of Fengdu said solemnly. "Zhen Yuanzi, what do you mean?" Suddenly, Emperor Jun's face darkened, and he growled at Zhen Yuanzi. Obviously, he was enraged by Yi Xian. Yi Xian had beaten him violently just now. If he did not kill Yi Xian, how could he dispel his hatred? However, Zhen Yuanzi had interfered. How could Emperor Jun not be enraged? Today is the Human Ginseng Conference, not the place for you two to fight. If you really want to fight to the death, please wait until the conference is over and find another place to fight. Otherwise, don't blame me for being angry. Zhen Yuanzi's gentle smile disappeared, and his face gradually turned cold. An obscure light bloomed around him, distorting the space and time. When he waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, there was a terrible holy light overflowing. When Zhen Yuanzi revealed his cultivation, Emperor Jun's face changed greatly. His mind, which was filled with anger, suddenly became clear. Dong Huangtai's words before he left echoed in his mind. "A worthy younger brother. You must remember that you can't offend Zhen Yuanzi. You must invite him to participate in the Demons Conference." "Elder brother, he's just Zhen Yuanzi. Why do you value him so much? Some things are not as simple as they seem. Zhen Yuanzi is the ancestor of earthly immortals. He is still standing in the world, after going through several major tribulations. You must remember not to offend him." When Dong Huangtai's words rang in Emperor Jun's mind, he finally calmed down. He glared at Yi Xian fiercely, and withdrew the demon light around him, returning to the Five Villages temple. "Young friend, please do me a favor and don't start a dispute again." Zhen Yuanzi bowed and smiled kindly at Yi Xian. This made Yi Xian nod slowly and withdraw his qi, returning to the Ginseng Conference. However, no one saw the surprise in Yi Xian's eyes, which proved that he was not calm. In the Five Villages temple, everyone sat down again, but there was no killing intent, but a slightly depressed atmosphere. Humph! Suddenly, Di Jun coldly snorted and glanced at Yi Xian. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer as he said, "Since this heavenly Emperor Yi is already here, and fellow Taoists have also imparted their teachings, I wonder if you, Yi Xian, want to display what you've learned?" Obviously, the two of them were really angry. However, for the sake of Zhen Yuanzi, Emperor Jun could only temporarily stop the battle with Yi Xian. However, this did not mean that he would not target Yi Xian. At this moment, he even sneered at Yi Xian. "You will die miserably." Yi Xian smiled at Emperor Jun and retorted. Then, under Emperor Jun's gloomy gaze, he stood up and went directly to the ginseng fruit tree. Buzz! The air swayed and ripples spread out. Yi Xian waved his hand, and a black jade hand appeared. He didn't seem to make any movements, but the black jade buzzed and rotated, and 9 ancient demon runes appeared. The 9 ancient demon characters were surrounded by fire. When the 9 ancient demon characters appeared, the void collapsed, which proved that the 9 ancient demon characters were not simple. This is... Zhurong was surprised. He felt that the spirit was very familiar. However, before he could recall where he had seen it, he heard an angry roar. Where did you get this thing? Dijun abruptly stood up. The aura around his body was in chaos, and his face was ashen. Not only was his gaze filled with heaven-burning fury, but it was also mixed with extreme shock. The 8 Directions mysterious skill is a supreme demonic skill of the ancient demon tribe. It is also one of the main cultivation methods of Emperor Jun. Yi Xian smiled. Under the stunned and horrified expressions of the crowd, Yi Xian continued with a smile. The 8 Directions mysterious skill has another name. It is called the Demon Emperor's Heart Sutra. If you are interested, you can try to understand it. Wow. After Yi Xian finished speaking, the whole ginseng fruit club became noisy. All kinds of uproars were constantly heard. Isn't this Emperor Jun's cultivation method? How could this be? How could Yi Xian have Emperor Jun's cultivation method? The crowd was in a turbulent mood. No one could understand why Yi Xian had Emperor Jun's cultivation method. It was simply incredible. How dare you? Emperor Jun's face was livid. He roared loudly and stretched out his palm to take the black jade. However, before he could do anything, Yi Xian had already blocked the black jade. This made Emperor Jun's face gloomy. He was about to fight with Yi Xian again. My fellow Taoists, please calm down. Suddenly, Zhen Yuanzi frowned and spoke. This made Emperor Jun's expression extremely bad. Obviously, Zhen Yuanzi was partial to Yi Xian, which made him secretly hate Zhen Yuanzi. Fellow Taoist Zhen Yuan, Yi Xian stole the treasure of our demon tribe. Are you going to be partial to him? Emperor Jun said coldly. If he was not afraid of Zhen Yuanzi's cultivation and Dong Huang Tai's warning, he would have already attacked Yi Xian. Why would he waste time talking nonsense here? However, Emperor Jun could not understand why this black jade, called the Celestial Emperor Stone, contained the Demon Emperor's Heart Sutra. It disappeared without a trace after the Great War of Witch Demon. How could it fall into the hands of Yi Xian? Little friend, do you have anything to say? Zhen Yuanzi frowned as he asked Yi Xian. It was obvious that if he was too biased towards Yi Xian, this wouldn't be his purpose in life. This cultivation method was given to me by a friend. How can it be called stealing? Yi Xian said with a contemptuous smile. Nonsense. Then tell me, where did you get it? Who is your friend? Emperor Jun scolded coldly and angrily. Haha. Suddenly, just as the gazes of the various great Luo quasi-saints were focused on the two of them, a burst of boorish laughter sounded out. A figure walked over from the distant horizon and appeared in front of Yi Xian in the blink of an eye before looking at Dijun. A smile appeared on his face and he said, This is a gift from me to Yi Tiandi. Do you have any questions? Kuan Peng? Emperor Jun said in horror. He was stunned because the person who appeared next to Yi Xian was Kuan Peng, the demon master of the ancient demon court. Silence, an eerie silence. When Kuan Peng and Yi Xian stood together, the scene was too strange and unbelievable. Not to mention Emperor Jun, even Zhen Yuanzi, and the other sage-to-be were shocked and speechless. As everyone knew, Demon Master Kuan Peng was a member of the ancient demon court. He was ranked below the 2 demon emperors, and was respected by millions of demon tribes. Anyone could stand together with Yi Xian, but the Kuan Peng couldn't. This was because the two of them were completely unrelated. Chapter 710. However, the demon master Kuan Peng just had to walk together with Yi Xian. At this moment, the expression he used to look at Dijun wasn't very friendly. How could this not cause everyone present to be astonished? Demon Master. Why are you with him? After a while, Emperor Jun asked Kuanping with a pale face. They were close friends and had the same goal, which was to make the demon tribe the overlord of the world. This was also the goal of the 2 celestial emperors and the demon master Kuanping in the past. However, Emperor Jun could not understand. After so many years, when he saw Kuanping again, he found that his old friend was with his enemy. It was beyond his imagination. Emperor Jun, for the sake of our friendship in the past, I advise you not to be an enemy of Yi Tiandi. Go back and tell Dong Huang Tai that I have joined the 33rd Celestial Court. From now on, I have nothing to do with the ancient demon court, Kuenping said calmly. You. Say it again? Emperor Jun clenched his fists, and the blue veins on his forehead bulged. He couldn't believe what he had heard and questioned Kuenping with a trembling voice. I have made it very clear. The ancient demon court has become a thing of the past. There is only one master of the world. If you and Tai can understand your own situation, it is better for you to submit to Yi Tiandi. In this way, the demon tribe can become the overlord of the world in the future, Kuenping advised earnestly, looking very serious. Submit to him? Emperor Jun gritted his teeth, and his eyes turned red. He stared at Kuenping and said, Demon Master, do you know that you are betraying the ancient demon court? Betraying? Kuenping shook his head slowly and said, You are wrong. I have always been free. How can I betray? It was a slap in the face. Kuenping's words seemed calm and easygoing, but it was like a slap to Emperor Jun's face, which made him extremely ashamed and furious. If Yi Xian took out the demon emperor's heart sutra to humiliate him, then the Kuenping's betrayal was like a ruthless slap to his face, causing him to lose all face. Not only Emperor Jun, but also the entire ancient demon court, and his most respected brother, Donghuang Tai. The demons' conference was about to begin, and the ancient demon court would officially take control of the three realms. However, at the most critical moment, Demon Master Kuenping betrayed the ancient demon court. How would the billions of demons view him and Donghuang Tai? Emperor Jun and Donghuang Tai were so incompetent that they could not even keep the demon master, who had fought side with them in the past? Yi Xian, what kind of spell did you use to actually bewitch the Kuenping into betraying our ancient demon court? Emperor Jun roared furiously. Endless demonic light shot in all directions, and a murderous aura filled the air. Unfortunately, Yi Xian seemed to treat Di Jun as air, and directly chose to ignore him. It was also Yi Xian's attitude that made Di Jun unable to suppress the anger in his heart. Yi Xian, you are courting death. Boom. Di Jun took a step forward, and the entire longevity mountain shook violently. In the end, he couldn't endure it, and he couldn't endure it either. Even if Zhen Yuanzi tried to stop him, he had to kill Yi Xian today. Only then would he be able to vent the anger in his heart. Emperor Jun, if you want to attack Yi Tiandi, you have to go through me first. Suddenly, Kuenping stretched out his arms. Black and white qi rumbled, and surged toward Emperor Jun. Terrifying demonic qi rippled out at the same time. Obviously, Kuenping had to fight Emperor Jun personally. This was not only to draw a line between him and the ancient celestial court, but also to show his loyalty to Yi Xian. Kuenping, are you going to be my enemy? Emperor Jun roared furiously. Dazzling demonic light shot out from all over his body. 108 halos appeared behind him quietly. They gathered into a strange formation map, which distorted the world. Looking at the formation map behind Emperor Jun, Kuenping's expression changed. His eyes darkened. The black and white demonic light around him bloomed to the extreme, as if he was facing a great enemy. Apart from Donghuang Tai, Kuenping was the only one who knew Emperor Jun best. The formation that Emperor Jun displayed was the crystallization of 108 great skills of the demonic tribe. It was also Emperor Jun's strongest state. In fact, Kuenping admired Emperor Jun very much, because Emperor Jun was the most powerful genius in the history of the demon tribe. Emperor Jun could learn all kinds of divine sense and secret skills. Even Donghuang Tai was not as good as Emperor Jun in terms of divine sense, let alone Kuenping. Being able to cultivate all the great arts of the demon race, and find another way to combine them into one, turning them into his own Dao and Dao. This kind of person was unparalleled. Naturally, Kuenping admired him. The Kuenping also understood that he wasn't a match for Di Jun. But he had no choice but to fire the arrow. He could only fight a great battle with Di Jun in order to express his loyalty to Yi Xian, and prove that he truly drew a clear line between himself and the ancient demon court. We haven't seen each other for many years. Let me have a taste of your skills, Kuenping said in a low voice, and raised his spirit to the peak. However, at this time, Yi Xian stepped forward quietly and patted Kuenping's shoulder. Then, a killing intent flashed across his eyes. He looked at Emperor Jun and said, "Today is the ginseng fruit gathering held by Taoist Jin Yuan. If you really want to fight with me, why don't you wait until the gathering is over?" Hearing Yi Xian's words, Zhen Yuanzi looked at Emperor Jun calmly. Obviously, if Emperor Jun really dared to fight, he would not be polite as the host. At this time, Emperor Jun was panting violently because of Yi Xian. He had already seen that Zhen Yuanzi was obviously on Yi Xian's side. Now that Kuan Peng was on his side, if he really fought with Yi Xian, the three sages to be would definitely make him fall into a great calamity. Although Emperor Jun was burning with anger, he was not stupid. The situation was extremely unfavorable for him. So he could only suppress his anger, and the formation behind him slowly dissipated. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. You should be glad for your choice. Yi Xian smiled, and said to Emperor Jun with a slight ridicule, "Yi Xian, don't be complacent. I will remember what happened today. If you really have the guts, I will wait for you in the ancient demon court when the demons' conference starts." Di Jun sat back down and closed his eyes. He didn't look at Yi Xian again, and his entire body became silent. "Ha!" Yi Xian chuckled and did not respond. Only a killing intent flashed across his eyes. Then, he turned around and looked at the sages-to-be of the Daluo realm. If everyone is interested in this 8 Desolation 6 Direction Mysterious Heaven technique, you can take it and comprehend it yourself. This emperor can be considered to have given you all a fortune. Yi Xian said calmly. Chapter 7:11. Although Yi Xian said so, no one present dared to practice this technique. If they really practiced this technique, they would definitely offend Emperor Jun and bring about a fatal disaster in the future. It seems that you are not interested. Yi Xian naturally knew what they were thinking. He smiled slightly and took back the black jade. He let out a long sigh and said, "Then I can only bring this technique back to the celestial court and let my subordinates practice it." "Haha, that's good." Kong Xian laughed loudly and echoed, "Elder brother, you have suffered for tens of thousands of years." Yi Xian strolled to Kong Xian and bowed to him with a little shame. Apparently, it was Kong Xian who stood up for Yi when he killed his way into the celestial court. Yi Xian firmly remembered this favor. "A worthy younger brother, you must be joking. I did not suffer any grievances. If it were not for the battle with Yi, I would not have been able to step into the sage-to-be. Perhaps I would have been shackled at the peak of the zenith heaven realm for the rest of my life." Kong Xian patted Yi Xian's shoulder and said with a smile, "Elder brother, let me introduce you to someone." As Yi Xian was speaking, Kuan Peng also came to them. Kong Xian's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "A worthy younger brother, there is no need to introduce me to you. Kuan Peng and I have known each other since the untainted land." "That's right. Before I became a sage-to-be, I had sat down and discussed Tao with you. We are old friends who have not seen each other for many years," Kuan Peng said with a smile. The three of them finally sat together and directly ignored the others. They were even talking and laughing about something. This also made Emperor Jun in the distance open his eyes. A touch of seriousness flashed across his eyes, and then he closed them again and continued to rest. However, if one looked carefully, one would find that Emperor Jun's fists were tightly clenched and blue veins were bulging. This also proved how furious he was. Not only was Emperor Jun's emotions fluctuating, but the other Zenith Heaven quasi-saints were also silent. Everyone's eyes were filled with seriousness. The 3 quasi-saints were too terrifying. If they were just ordinary sage-to-be, it would be fine. However, these 3 people all had great backgrounds. Each of them was a supreme existence in the world. Yi Xian had already used his own cultivation to prove himself. The first time he fought with Di Jun, he was already at a disadvantage. Although Di Jun was only careless for a moment, this also proved Yi Xian's strength. Kuanping, the master of all demons. Although his cultivation was not as high as Emperor Jun's, he was still a peerless expert among sage-to-be. He was well known by the world during the Great Witch Demon Tribulation. Kong Xian was the first 5-colored peacock since the creation of the world. His 5-colored divine light could wipe out all spirit weapons. Once he stepped into the quasi-saint realm, He was definitely not someone an ordinary quasi-saint could compare to. The three demi-saints all belonged to the celestial court. When such strength was displayed in front of everyone, not to mention the Daliao golden immortals present, even Zhurong and the Emperor of Feng Du had an extremely ugly expression. If there were three major forces in the world, the sorcerer tribe, the ancient demon court, and the underworld, then the fourth major force was already on the verge of appearing. It was very likely that it was the 33rd celestial court. If the celestial court was allowed to develop like this, it would definitely bring great danger to the three major forces. Zhurong's mood was very heavy. The way he looked at Yi Xian kept changing. Sometimes it was killing intent, sometimes it was fear. In the end, he closed his eyes and rested like Emperor Jun. However, no one knew what he was thinking. Maji, what's wrong with you? The Emperor of Feng Du looked at his disciple Huang Maji in confusion. He could feel that Huang Maji's emotions were fluctuating, which made him ask softly. Huang Maji instantly woke up. He then bowed to the Emperor of Feng Du and said, I'm just a little excited to be able to participate in the ginseng fruit gathering with Master. This trip has broadened my horizons. The Emperor of Feng Du nodded. The doubts in his heart had dissipated. Everyone present was a quasi-saint of the great Luo realm. It was not strange that his disciple was a little nervous. Maji, you have consumed the ginseng fruit. You are about to enter the fourth heaven of the great Luo realm. However, this is only the beginning. Your goal should be the quasi-saint realm. Only then can you improve the strength of the underworld. Although the Emperor of Feng Du said this to Yi Xian, his eyes were still fixed on Yi Xian. There was a heavy look in his eyes. Yes, I will definitely cultivate diligently. I will definitely not disappoint you, Master, Huang Maji promised. Huang Maji promised firmly. However, the Emperor of Feng Du did not notice the strange look in his disciple's eyes. Fellow Taoists have come from afar. This humble Taoist is very honored. Let this humble Taoist begin the next heaven's question, Zhen Yuanzi said with a smile. As soon as Zhen Yuanzi finished speaking, the entire ginseng fruit gathering suddenly fell silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on Zhen Yuanzi. The ginseng fruit gathering was divided into three parts. Tasting the ginseng fruit was only the first part. The second part was the teachings of the quasi-saints. As for the third part, it was the heaven's question. What was the heaven's question? Speaking of which, the heaven's question had some background. It was a kind of grand wish of heaven and earth. It was also a display of great courage and perseverance. For example, when the three pure ones became saints in the past, they made a grand wish of heaven and earth, and founded the Ren, Chan and Jie sects. They also relied on the merit of establishing their sects to become saints. There were also the two saints of the West who made 48 grand wishes of heaven and earth, and founded the Western sect. They relied on the merit of heaven and earth to become origin Tao immortals. These saints weren't the only ones. The Nether River forefather also made a grand wish in the primordial era. Unfortunately, he wasn't a heavenly saint, and was shackled to the quasi-saint realm in the end. There was also a Buddhist powerhouse named Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. He made a grand wish of heaven and earth that he wouldn't become a Buddha until hell was empty. Almost every quasi-saint had made a grand wish, but these wishes varied in size. Most of them were related to the power of the great Tao, and their profoundness wasn't something that could be described with mere words. Rather than a grand wish of heaven and earth, it was more of a belief in oneself and a desire to become a saint. The quasi-saint's only goal was to become a saint. The so-called grand wish of heaven and earth was also a way to reveal one's path. If one carelessly made a grand wish of heaven and earth and failed to fulfill it, one's cultivation would plummet. In the worst-case scenario, one would be devoured by the heavenly Tao and reduced to ashes. Just look at Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's grand wish. He'd never walked out of the 18 layers of hell after entering the netherworld. This was the restriction of the grand wish of heaven and earth. Therefore, the question of the heavens in the mortal ginseng fruit association had a great background. It could also tell how far a person would go. Since the dawn of time, all things were born of one another. Only great liberation and great freedom could allow one to transcend. Today, I make a grand wish of heaven and earth. No matter what obstacles stand in my way, I will transcend them. Zhen Yuanzi's words were powerful and resonant. The great Tao of time and space rumbled in response to his words. Mysterious chanting of sutras traveled from the multiverse, as if bearing witness to Zhen Yuanzi's vow. Chapter 7:12. I'm Landia. I'm not here to become a saint, but to return home. If the great Tao can sense it, it will bear witness to my great wish. Landia looked up at the sky and whispered. His eyes seemed to be drifting, as if he had fallen into an unpredictable state. The two sage-to-be declared their great wishes one after another, and then looked at the other sage-to-be seated. The so-called great wish of heaven and earth has nothing to do with the Wu tribe, Zhurong said bitterly. Although the Wu tribe had a strong physical body, and could be said to be the best in the three realms, they were born without primordial spirit, so it was impossible for them to become a saint. It was better not to declare the great wish of heaven and earth. I, the Emperor of Fengdu of the underworld, rule the 5 ghost regions of the underworld, control the 6 paths, and control the afterlife. If the great Tao of heaven and earth can sense it, I will be the 7th heaven-ordained saint. The Emperor of Fengdu suddenly stood up and declared the greatest wish in his heart. This was also the goal he had been working hard for. As the highest ghost emperor of the underworld, he had been in charge of the normal operation of the underworld for countless years. This was already a kind of boundless merit. If he could get the Hong Meng immortal vapor, he might really have a chance to become a saint. Become a saint? What a big tone. Suddenly, the emperor stood up and looked directly at the Emperor of Fengdu. He said, Fengdu, let's not beat around the bush. In the past, the underworld was ruled by the ancient demon court. The 5 ghost emperors all obeyed the celestial emperor's decree. Do you want to lead the underworld to become independent and not respect the ancient demon court anymore? Emperor Jun questioned coldly and looked at the Emperor of Fengdu unkindly. Perhaps some people would ask, is Emperor Jun too arrogant? He has just offended Yi Xian and the others, and now he is directly challenging the Emperor of Fengdu. Is he crazy? In fact, the reason was very simple. Emperor Jun's questioning of the Emperor of Fengdu was a matter of principle for the ancient demon court. The biggest problem for the ancient demon court was the underworld, if they wanted to regain control of the 3 realms. This was also a problem that the ancient demon court would have to face sooner or later. If Emperor Jun pretended not to know and did not say anything, the ancient demon court would be no different from the 33 heavenly courts. They would only let the underworld listen to them. This was not something that Emperor Jun could tolerate. Emperor Jun, the untainted age is a thing of the past. The underworld is complicated. Even if you and Dong Huang Tai brought the ancient demon court back to the world, do you really think that you can make the underworld obey the orders of the ancient demon court? The Emperor of Fengdu rebuked coldly. He could not give in on such a matter of principle. Ha! Suddenly, without waiting for Di Jun to flare up, a light laughter sounded out. This caused the expressions of everyone present to change slightly as they looked towards the source of the laughter. They saw that Yi Xian had already stood up and was looking at the Emperor of Fengdu with a smile. You are right. The ancient demon court is a thing of the past. However, as the master of the celestial court and the ruler of the 3 realms, it seems that you will not obey the orders of the celestial court? Yi Xian said maliciously. When Yi Xian interfered, the Emperor of Fengdu's expression changed. Everyone exclaimed. No one had thought that Yi Xian would act like Emperor Jun and directly attack the Emperor of Fengdu. In fact, no one knew that Yi Xian's attack on the Emperor of Fengdu had nothing to do with Emperor Jun. It was also not that Yi Xian was competitive. The only thing that Yi Xian and Emperor Jun had in common was that they were both celestial emperors. They would never allow the underworld to be independent. This was the reason why Yi Xian attacked the Emperor of Fengdu, which happened to be the same as Emperor Jun's. In the past, Yi Xian could do nothing about the underworld if he did not become a sage-to-be. He could only turn a blind eye to the underworld. However, now that he had become a sage-to-be, Kong Xian and Kuanpeng had joined the celestial court, and Taisheng Laojun. There were 4 sage-to-be in charge of the celestial court. Yi Xian finally had the confidence to govern the underworld. What is the celestial court in this world? How can it be compared with the ancient demon court? Emperor Jun sneered and scolded after recovering from his shock. He was extremely disdainful of Yi Xian's celestial court. You piece of trash, you're really noisy. If it wasn't for the ginseng fruit gathering today, this emperor would have definitely made you suffer a fate worse than death. Yi Xian's eyes were cold, and his voice was filled with killing intent. Yi Xian, you little brat, how dare you insult me? Emperor Jun growled. At this moment, he also showed a cold killing intent. Apparently, he was not taken lightly by Yi Xian's words. In my eyes, you are just trash. I will let you know soon what will happen to you if you offend me. Yi Xian's eyes were gloomy. Then he suddenly looked at the Emperor of Fengdu and said, Fengdu, I will give you a chance now. As long as you submit to me, you will still be the Supreme Ghost Emperor, who governs the underworld. Otherwise, Yi Xian didn't continue speaking, but his killing intent was blooming. It was obvious that his meaning was self-evident. If Fengdu wasn't willing to submit, then he would only have a path of death. Haha! The Emperor of Fengdu laughed wildly. The dark light that covered the sky rippled in the void. When the pair of Dharma eyes of reincarnation began, it was as if billions of souls were struggling and wailing in his eyes. Do the two of you really think I am easy to bully? The Emperor of Fengdu growled. The dark light that exploded in all directions shook, and an extremely terrifying ghost emperor's aura burst out. Friends, calm down. Today is the Ginseng Fruit Festival. If you want to stir up a dispute between the three realms, please invite me out of the Longevity Mountain to fight on my own. Zhen Yuanzi frowned slightly and tried to persuade him again. Fengdu, think about it carefully. This is also your last chance. Yi Xian smiled coldly and sat down again. Fengdu, in the Myriad Demon Conference 10,000 years later, Empress Nuwa will personally come. At that time, don't say that the ancient demon court did not give the underworld a chance. Emperor Jun flung his sleeves and returned to his seat again. Obviously, he knew that Fengdu was not afraid of him. He directly mentioned Nuwa, which also gave the Emperor of Fengdu a lot of pressure. The two of you are going too far. The Emperor of Fengdu's heart was about to explode. As the Supreme Ghost Emperor of the underworld, he was actually humiliated in the Ginseng Fruit Festival. This was simply unacceptable. However, he had to accept it even if he did not want to. After all, Yi Xian and Emperor Jun's cultivation were terrifying. The Emperor of Fengdu also knew that if he really fought with the two of them, not to mention whether he could defeat one of them, if he lost, he would definitely be killed by the other. This was not an outcome he wanted to see. Endure. The Emperor of Fengdu could only endure. However, he stared at Yi Xian and Emperor Jun with a malicious gaze and sat down again. His entire body became silent and motionless. The atmosphere became heavy again. However, the Ginseng Fruit Festival still had to continue, and the heavens question was not over yet. Next, Ancestor Wanxiang and Taoist Qing Tian made their grand wishes one after another. However, the grand wishes of these two ordinary sage-to-be were like those of ancient times, so it did not bring much shock to the people present. Kong Xian and Kunpeng stood up one after another. Their grand wishes were neither too big nor too small. They did not have much desire for the position of saint. They just had the mentality of going with the flow. Chapter 713. At this moment, there were only two people left who hadn't made their grand wishes. These two people were Di Jun and Yi Xian. It was also at this moment that the gazes of the entire audience were focused on the two of them. It was unknown what kind of grand wish these two heavenly emperors would make. Humph! Di Jun squinted at Yi Xian and snorted coldly. He stood up proudly and looked at the sky. The expression on his face gradually became solemn and solemn. The entire Ginseng Fruit Association was so silent that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. I, Di Jun, the celestial emperor of the demon race, make a wish of heaven and earth. I will make my heart for heaven and earth and my life for the demon race. Even if I have to die, I will make the demon race dominate the three realms and help my brother, Dong Huang Tai, become the seventh heaven-ordained saint. I will not hesitate even if I have to be annihilated. Dijun's voice rumbled, and the great Tao of heaven and earth hummed. This was not his wish alone. It represented the will of the entire ancient demon court, and was the voice of all the ancient demons. Rumble! The chaotic chi fell, and the great Tao principles whistled. Dijun's voice also rang throughout the three realms, and awakened many sages to be. Even the saints outside the 33rd heaven felt it. It turned out that Dijun had never dreamed of becoming a saint. His true wish was to make the demon race the overlord of the three realms, and help Dong Huangtai become a saint. The great Tao of heaven and earth rumbled, and lasted for half an hour before it dissipated. It was also at this time that the solemn expression on Dijun's face disappeared. Yi Xian, let this emperor see what kind of great wish you have. Dijun coldly looked at Yi Xian, and the corners of his mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. A worthy younger brother, the great Tao of heaven and earth is not a game. It will make the great Tao of heaven and earth feel it. You must think twice. Kong Xian secretly transmitted his voice. Apparently, he was afraid that Yi Xian would make an impossible wish, and end up with his soul scattered. Celestial Emperor, the great Tao of heaven and earth, is related to becoming a saint. If you are not ready, you should give up. Kunpeng secretly reminded. At this time, all the Daoyuo quasi-saints focused their eyes on Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression did not change, and he finally stood up slowly. Boom! Yi Xian moved. He took a step forward and directly stepped into the sky. His entire body stood in the sky, and a head of gray hair fell behind his head. As the violent wind blew, his hair fluttered in the wind, and an extremely resplendent light blossomed from his body. Yi Xian disdains the so-called great wish of the heavens and earth. Since all the fellow Taoists here have made great wishes, then today, Yi Xian will also have a wish in his heart. Yi Xian's voice sounded out in all directions, but when it entered the ears of the great Luo quasi-saints, it caused their expressions to greatly change. This was because Yi Xian's words were disrespectful to the heavens and earth. This caused them to be extremely shocked. Rumble. It was as if the chaotic world was exploding, and as if the river of time was flowing in reverse. When Yi Xian made this great Tao of heaven and earth, the world suddenly became extremely illusory. The entire world rumbled and trembled. The invisible great Tao of heaven and earth went berserk, and the sky suddenly darkened. Crack! Lightning streaked across the sky. Dark clouds were densely packed. Billions of bolts of ninth heaven divine thunder raged in the dark clouds. The power to destroy the world burst forth. An unimaginable aura grew in the firmament, as if it was extremely angry, because of Yi Xian's great Tao of heaven and earth. Heavenly punishment. He actually drew out heavenly punishment? Crazy, this is simply crazy. This great Tao of heaven and earth is disrespectful to the heavenly Tao. He is simply courting death. The saint of saints, how dare he think about it? The entire ginseng fruit society was in complete chaos. The various Grand Luo cried out in horror. Even the various quasi-saints were pale, because Yi Xian's great Tao of heaven and earth was too terrifying. This was simply an act of suicide. To transcend the world, and become the saint of saints. If the world was destroyed, he would not be destroyed. If all things died, he would not die. Someone actually dared to make such a great Tao of heaven and earth. If they did not hear it with their own ears, no one would dare to believe that such a thing would happen in front of them. Unfortunately, no one knew that Yi Xian had made this great Tao of heaven and earth when he was still weak. He had been working hard in this direction. Today, he had finally stepped into the realm of quasi-saint, and could finally see the palace of saints. Today, he finally roared out the great Tao of heaven and earth that he had hidden in his heart for many years. Yi Xian was proud and unyielding. Even if he drew out heavenly punishment, he was not afraid at all. This was because this was what he thought in his heart, and it was also his greatest goal. Crack! Thunder from the 9 heavens destroyed the world. This was the punishment of the heavenly Tao. The hundreds of millions of thunderbolts turned into a sea of thunder that covered the sky. With the power to bury all things, it came down on Yi Xian. Heaven-destroying halberd. Yi Xian stood proudly in the sky as he roared towards the sky. The space between his brows was glowing. This was a type of light of annihilation that made people feel as if their souls were about to be minced into pieces. Boom! The 3-inch halberd rippled out, and the strong winds of heaven and earth howled. The heaven-destroying halberd expanded in the wind until it was 1,000,000 miles long. Kill! Yi Xian put 2 fingers together and endless darkness covered the sky. Only he was emitting a terrifying light. This light was called the light of Nirvana, and it was a power that did not exist in the 3 realms. Boom! The great halberd turned the sky upside down and killed all things. The 1,000,000 miles long heaven-destroying halberd was too terrifying, and it had an extremely frightening power that could shake the heavens. This #1 murderous weapon of all times followed Yi Xian's sword finger and attacked the sea of thunder that covered the sky. Rumble! Heaven and earth shook and the sky collapsed. The sea of thunder that covered the sky seemed to have turned into bubbles and disappeared, without a trace, under the attack of the heaven-destroying halberd. The flashing thunderbolts finally dissipated unwillingly between heaven and earth. However, this was not the most frightening thing. The most frightening thing was that the heaven-destroying halberd had broken a huge hole in the sky. The terrifying spatial crack appeared, and an extremely mysterious aura was emitted from the spatial crack. Such a scene was extremely shocking, and even their souls were trembling. Just the combat strength that Yi Xian had displayed had shocked all the Daluo sage to sages. Silence, silence, a deathly silence. The ginseng fruit gathering was dead silent, and all the Daluo sage to sages were shocked speechless. This atmosphere lasted for more than 10 breaths of time, until a panicked voice was heard. This woke all the Daluo sage to sages up. Look, what is that? Suddenly, a golden immortal of the great overarching heaven cried out in shock. He even pointed at the spatial rift in the sky, causing everyone present to look in the direction he was pointing at. Above the sky in the void, the spatial crack that was broken by the heaven-destroying halberd was gradually healing. However, a misty purple light rippled out from the spatial crack, and an extremely mysterious aura was emitted from the purple light. At this moment, it was bobbing up and down in the sky. Hong Meng immortal vapor? Suddenly, the emperor screamed in horror. His entire face was flushed red, and his body and mind were trembling to an unimaginable extent. As the Emperor Jun's words fell, the entire ginseng fruit gathering was dead silent. However, a large amount of heavy and fiery aura was rising and falling continuously, be it the Daluo Jingxian or the other sage to sages present. All of them were staring at the misty purple light in the sky. An indescribable atmosphere began to grow. Kong Xian and Kuan Peng's gaze gradually turned sharp. The Emperor of Feng Du had already stood up, and a black stone book appeared in his hand. It was the supreme treasure of the underworld, the Book of Life and Death. Zhurong also stood up. His body was covered by the fire essence of heaven and earth. No one could see his expression clearly. However, from the ancestral sorcerer divine fire that he released, it could be seen that his current state was extremely unstable. A green gourd appeared in Lanya's hand out of thin air. It was the extremely terrifying immortal-slaying flying dagger. Jin Yuanzi frowned slightly. The horsetail whisk in his hand swayed slightly, and a touch of chaotic divine light appeared quietly. Even the 2 ordinary sage to sages had taken out their strongest spiritual treasures and looked at the Hong Meng immortal vapor in the sky with a burning gaze. Boom! Like a chaotic world, the various sage to sages rushed into the sky and instantly surged towards the Hong Meng immortal vapor in the sky. Chapter 714. Yi Xian withdrew his halberd and stood there, looking surprised and bewildered. The Hong Meng immortal vapor was only 1,000 feet away from him, and was floating in the firmament. However, Yi Xian was in a trance, and did not collect the Hong Meng immortal vapor immediately. Moreover, his mind was in turmoil, and he was extremely bewildered. Just now, when the divine punishment descended, he smashed it with his halberd, and opened a gap in the sky. The Hong Meng immortal vapor strangely appeared from the space crack. He could not believe it. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? He had only broken open a space, and the 7th strand of primordial violet chi just happened to appear. Wasn't this kind of thing a fantasy? This was also the reason why Yi Xian was bewildered. However, Before Yi Xian came back to his senses, the sage-to-be had arrived and surrounded him, and the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Heavy breathing and fiery eyes. This was the current state of the demi-saints. Everyone stared at the Hongmeng immortal vapor, with indescribable greed in their eyes. Hongmeng immortal vapor was the key to becoming a sage. Although there were not many sage-to-be in this world, there had been quite a number of sage-to-be since the creation of the world. Some had turned into ashes in order to step into the saint realm, while others had lived to this day in a muddle-headed state, unable to see the road ahead at all. Tao ancestor Hong Jun had once said that there were only 7 sages in the world. However, the 7th sage had not been born yet. The appearance of the Hongmeng immortal vapor meant that the 7th sage was about to appear. Sage. It was a simple word, but it was as heavy as heaven and earth. Countless sage-to-be had been tossing and turning restlessly in their cultivation in order to obtain the last sage position. Needless to say, powerful sage-to-be like Emperor Jun, even ancestor of all creation and Taoist Qing Tian, who had just entered the sage-to-be level, did not retreat. At this moment, they were all looking at the Hongmeng immortal vapor with fiery eyes. Not only were the demi-sages agitated, but the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals did not leave either. Instead, they surrounded the Hongmeng immortal qi in the periphery. Clearly, the appearance of the Hongmeng immortal qi was coveted by even the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals. Although these Daoyuo Jingxian knew that they were no match for the sage-to-be, if they could obtain the Hongmeng immortal vapor by chance, they might be able to become a sage in the future. Those who could enter the Daoyuo Jingxian were all determined people, and were not ordinary people. If they did not have the desire to improve, they would not be able to cultivate to such a high realm. Therefore, the Hongmeng immortal vapor, the sage-to-be, and the world became extremely oppressive, as if a world-destroying war was about to break out. At this moment, Yi Xian was in the most danger, because he was the closest to the Hongmeng immortal vapor. This also made the sage-to-be lock their qi on Yi Xian, as they looked at the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Obviously, they were afraid that he would attack and take the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Yi Xian gradually calmed down. He squinted his eyes and looked at the sage-to-be around him. A solemn look flashed across his eyes. If it was just one sage-to-be, Yi Xian would not feel anything. However, with so many sage-to-be staring at him, if a war really broke out, even he would be in trouble. Don't forget, although Yi Xian cultivated a method of using strength to prove his Tao, and he himself was extremely powerful, there was still a limit to this. If he exceeded this limit, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Yi Xian was confident that he could suppress Emperor Jun, the demon race's celestial emperor. However, Emperor Jun was not a weakling. Without a life-and-death battle, it would be impossible to suppress Emperor Jun. The Emperor of Feng Du was the supreme ghost emperor. His cultivation should not be much lower than Emperor Jun's. As for Zhu Rong of the sorcerer tribe, although the sorcerer tribe could not become a saint, it did not mean that he was not interested in the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Zhen Yuanzi and Lan Yu were both sage-to-be in the untainted land. Their cultivation was even more mysterious. In particular, even Yi Xian was wary of the immortal flying saber in Lan Ye's hand. As for the 2 ordinary quasi-saints, although Yi Xian didn't put them in his eyes, Yi Xian wasn't careless in the slightest. To be able to step into the quasi-saint realm, they definitely weren't simple people. If he were to fail miserably, this wasn't the result that Yi Xian wanted to see. To Yi Xian's relief, Kong Xian and Kuan-Peng were his people. This increased his chances of winning the Hongmeng immortal qi. Yes, Yi Xian had to get the Hongmeng immortal qi. Although the appearance of the Hongmeng immortal qi was very sudden, it was the key to becoming a sage. He had to get it no matter what. Step. Yi Xian lightly took a step forward. Although his actions were extremely light, and were also a disguised form of probing, what happened next was extremely terrifying. How dare you? Die. Roar. The Ghost Dao Great Technique, the Demon Race Secret Technique, and the Ancestral Shaman Divine Fire. The 3 quasi-saints directly blasted out unparalleled techniques at Yi Xian, causing Yi Xian's expression to slightly change. His palm and finger brushed through the air, barely managing to cancel out the attacks of the 3 quasi-saints. Yi Xian was forced to retreat in an instant. The terrifying skills disappeared without a trace. However, there was a stalemate in the sky. No one dared to take the Hongmeng Immortal Qi first. The sage-to-be had already realized that whoever dared to take the Hongmeng Immortal Qi first would be killed by the other sage-to-be. At this moment, Ancestor of all creation and Taoist Qing Tian were the weakest. Obviously, they had formed an alliance. Only in this way could they have a chance. Swoosh! Kuan Peng and Kong Xian quietly appeared beside Yi Xian. The three sage-to-be occupied the east. When they saw this, Emperor Jun and the others' expressions changed greatly. An extremely heavy look flashed across their eyes. Heaven Emperor, go ahead and take the Hongmeng Immortal Qi, Taoist Kong Xian, and I will hold them off for you for a while. Kuan Peng said gloomily. Black and white demonic light covered the sky. He and Kong Xian looked at each other and saw the heavy look in each other's eyes. Taoist Zhurong, let's work together. If we can get the Hongmeng Immortal Qi, we will discuss who it belongs to. The great Emperor of Fengdu suddenly transmitted his voice to Zhurong. This made Zhurong hesitate for a moment before he quietly stood beside the great Emperor of Fengdu clearly. Both of them understood that it was unrealistic to fight for the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor alone. At this moment, Emperor Jun's expression was uncertain. In the blink of an eye, the sage-to-be had formed an alliance. At this moment, he was the only one left. How could he not feel gloomy? All of a sudden, Di Jun looked at Ancestor Wanxiang, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Both of you have just become sage-to-be. You are no match for them. As long as you are willing to help me, the ancient demon court will never forget your kindness. Emperor Jun said solemnly. Emperor Jun said solemnly, and secretly transmitted his voice to the two sages-to-be. No one knew what kind of promise he made. In just 3 breaths, the ancestor of all creations and the Qing Tian Taoist had formed an alliance with Emperor Jun. Chapter 7:15. At this moment, Yi Xian had 3 sage-to-be on his side, and so did Di Jun. However, they were slightly weaker than Yi Xian. After all, the cultivation of ancestor of all creation and Taoist Qing Tian was incomparable to that of Kunping Kong Xian. The Emperor of Fengdu and Zhurong had formed an alliance. Both of them were extremely terrifying and stronger than Di Jun and the other 2 sage-to-be. Landia and Zhen Yuanzi were close friends. Naturally, they were on the same side. Although they rarely revealed their cultivation, they were definitely not weaker than Yi Xian's side. In a very short time, the 4 camps were divided and surrounded the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Everyone's face was gloomy. Fellow Taoists, I'm the one who organized the ginseng fruit meeting today. However, I didn't expect the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor to appear at this moment. This is a great opportunity for us. Why don't we stop fighting and sit down to discuss who owns the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor? Zhen Yuanzi said leisurely as he swept his horsetail whisk. Fellow Taoist Jin Yuan, you must be joking. There is only one Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. May I ask who can give it away? The Emperor of Fengdu sneered. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Let's fight. Di Jun growled, his eyes growing heavier. Hongmeng Immortal Vapor had just appeared. Only a few people present knew about it. However, if other sage-to-be, or even the 6 great sages were to know about it, there would be complications. It would be extremely difficult to obtain the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. I'm afraid you won't be able to obtain the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Yi Xian's eyes were gloomy as he looked at Di Jun with a murderous look. The killing intent of the 4 camps soared into the sky as they constantly berated each other. However, a strange thing happened. No matter how they berated each other, no one took the initiative to attack. They were in a deadlock in the sky. Obviously, no one dared to act rashly. If they took the initiative to snatch the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor, they would become the target of public criticism and be besieged by the other 3 camps. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes were spinning as he racked his brains for a solution. However, no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't find a way to collect the Hongmeng Violet Vapor. After all, the sage-to-be were not to be trifled with. If he dared to act rashly with Kunping Kong Xian, he would definitely suffer a great calamity. Not to mention collecting the Hongmeng Immortal Qi, he himself would be in danger. The appearance of the primordial violet vapor has been sensed by the quasi-sages of heaven and earth. If we wait for the primordial violet vapor's aura to leak out, I'm afraid the quasi-sages of the three realms will personally come. Since you want to see who's better, I'll be the one to stand out. Whoever has the ability, come and fight me. Let's see who gets the primordial violet chi. Suddenly, Zhen Yuanzi took a step forward. His purple-gold bagua robe rippled slightly. Under the shocked and furious gazes of the crowd, Zhen Yuanzi flicked his sleeve and directly collected the Hong Meng immortal vapor. You dare? You're courting death. Emperor Jun roared. Tongtian's unparalleled demonic art fiercely blasted toward Zhen Yuanzi. The two sage-to-be behind him also didn't want to fall behind. They all displayed terrifying secret arts and blasted toward Zhen Yuanzi. At the same time, the Emperor of Fengdu and Zhurong violently attacked Zhen Yuanzi. The destructive ancestral sorcerer's divine fire and ghostly heaven grand skill rippled out at this moment. Zhen Yuanzi seemed to have turned into a fuse, completely breaking the stalemate in the field and igniting a great battle between the sage-to-be. World in the sleeve. Zhen Yuanzi lived up to his name as the ancestor of earthly immortals. Although he usually looked easygoing, when he revealed his cultivation, the billowing chaotic divine light burst out. His purple-gold sleeve was like a curtain that covered the sky. In an instant, all the sage-to-be's attacks were dispersed. However, he was also bombarded and kept retreating. Zhen Yuanzi was indeed terrifyingly powerful. However, in the face of several sage-to-be's attacks, he could only temporarily avoid them. He didn't dare to fight against several sage-to-be alone. Zhen Yuanzi, I'm here to help you. Taoist Luya arrived with a loud rumble. A 9-section staff appeared in his hand, and he smashed it down at Di Jun's head. The terrifying chaotic light erupted, and the void in the world buzzed and exploded. Landia, you're courting death. Emperor Jun's demonic art Tong Tian was one of the 2 celestial emperors of the ancient demon court. His ability was extremely terrifying. Demonic elephant prison suppression technique. Roar. The demonic roar tore the sky and dominated the land. 108 halos appeared behind Emperor Jun. All of a sudden, one of the halos lit up, and an ancient demonic elephant stomped on the air and attacked Landia. Fight! The 9-section staff collided with the ancient demonic elephant. The terrifying power that erupted from the collision forced the 2 sage-to-be to retreat. Emperor Jun, how dare you! Zhen Yuanzi surged forward. His palms were like jade, but they could hold up the heaven and earth. He even channeled the law of heaven and earth, bringing along a sky full of immortal annihilation light to obliterate Emperor Jun, demonic heavenly skill. Rumble. Emperor Jun lived up to his name as the celestial emperor of the demon race. His magic arts were simply divine. He casually struck out a peerless demonic art, and even split out an identical person from his body. Kill. This was Emperor Jun's demonic puppet. Although it did not have his own strength, and was only comparable to Daluo Jinxian's qi into 3 pure ones, it was much weaker compared to Lao Tzu's qi into 3 pure ones. It was only similar in form but not in spirit. Although this demonic puppet was only at the zenith heaven realm, it could be used as a sacrifice to offset Zhen Yuanzi's great art. What are you two waiting for? Quickly collect the Hong Meng immortal qi. I'll stop them. Emperor Jun was too ferocious, and his demon clan's abhijino was boundless. He fought Luya and Zhen Yuanzi alone, and even roared at Patriarch Wanxiang and Patriarch Wanxiang behind him. Patriarchs Wanxiang and Qing Tian Taoist did not dare to be negligent. They immediately turned into a long rainbow and shot towards the Hong Meng immortal qi. However, before they could collect the Hong Meng immortal qi, the Emperor of Fengdu and Zhurong arrived with a hideous smile. The two of them waved their hands and sent the 2 quasi-saints flying. The Hong Meng immortal qi is mine. The Emperor of Fengdu laughed wildly and reached out his palm to grab the Hong Meng immortal qi. Get lost. Suddenly, the black qi and the black qi shattered the void. An extremely terrifying great demonic art fell towards the Emperor of Fengdu, forcing him to hastily defend himself. Bang! The Kuanping and the Emperor of Fengdu collided with each other, and both of them retreated immediately. However, It was also at this moment that Zhurong grabbed at the Hong Meng immortal vapor. His eyes were filled with great excitement. Be careful. Suddenly, the Emperor of Fengdu warned in horror. This also sent chills down Zhurong's spine. He instantly disappeared from where he was standing. A beam of killing light quietly shattered the void where he had disappeared, and even broke open a terrifying hole in the void. Yi Xian! Zhurong roared furiously as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He looked at Yi Xian with extreme anger in his eyes. Fortunately, Zhurong dodged in time. Otherwise, Yi Xian's attack would have pierced through his chest and abdomen. This Yi Xian was too insidious to launch a sneak attack on him. Chapter 7:16. Brother, I'll stop him. Quickly take the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Yi Xian did not waste any time. He took a step forward and charged at Zhurong. His indestructible body glowed as he swung his arms violently at Zhurong. How dare you! The Wu tribe and Yi Xian were mortal enemies. Previously, Zhurong did not target Yi Xian because he saw that Yi Xian was powerful. However, with the appearance of the Hong Meng immortal vapor, new and old grudges piled up and ignited his burning anger. He charged at Yi Xian violently. Bang! 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 The body of the ancestor sorcerer was extremely terrifying, but Yi Xian was not afraid at all. The two fought fiercely, and the world seemed to be penetrated by their bodies. At the same time, Kong Xian charged directly at the Hong Meng immortal vapor, intending to take it in the next moment. However, all the sage to be were paying attention to the movement of the Hong Meng immortal vapor. How could they let Kong Xian take advantage of it? Die! Emperor Jun was fighting Landia and Jin Yuanzi. He hurriedly launched a demonic art at Kong Xian. Landia and Jin Yuanzi slowed down their attacks and attacked Kong Xian violently. Retreat! Without any hesitation or delay, Kong Xian retreated violently, narrowly avoiding the attacks of the three sage to be. However, at this moment, the terrifying energy released by the sage to be sent the Hong Meng immortal vapor flying and rippling toward the Daluo Jingxian. All the people in the world came for profit, and all the hustle and bustle of the world went for profit. This saying had never changed. It applied not only to mortals, but also to immortals. As the saying goes, wealth moves people's hearts. Although these golden immortals were different from mortals, they had to fight for a holy item like the primordial violet chi even if they had a slim chance of survival. If they could really snatch it, perhaps becoming a saint would be right in front of them. Snatch it! Someone shouted loudly, causing the world to explode. Countless Daluo Jingxian madly shot toward the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Their greedy and fiery aura filled the world. Kill! A golden immortal was just about to collect the primordial violet energy, when the terrifying attacks of a few dozen golden immortals arrived in succession, and instantly killed him in the heavens and the earth. Even his soul couldn't escape, and was obliterated in the heavens and the earth. Chaos, complete chaos. An intense battle had begun. These golden immortals were risking their lives, as if they didn't care about their lives to fight for the primordial violet chi. The mournful blood spilled into the sky, and no one dared to look directly at it. You bastards! How dare you snatch what belongs to this emperor? Suddenly, Emperor Jun was sent flying by Landia and Jin Yuanzi, which allowed him to escape from the battlefield. When he saw the Hong Meng immortal chi being fought over by the Daluo Jingxian, he charged towards them. Die! His demonic arts shook the heavens and annihilated grand immortals. Infuriated and enraged, Di Jun of the demon race unleashed every single strike, killing countless grand immortals in the firmament. These grand immortals were instantly awakened and fled like scattered birds. Let's see if you still dare to snatch this item from this emperor after I kill all of you bastards. Emperor Jun roared ferociously. As he killed the Daluo Jingxian, he approached the Hong Meng immortal chi. Clearly, he wanted to snatch it in one fell swoop. Bang! Suddenly, a jade-like palm slapped Emperor Jun's back, shattering his protective demonic light inch by inch. A mouthful of demonic blood spurted out from his mouth, as he abruptly turned around to look at the attacker. Yi Xian, you brat? When he saw the person behind him, Emperor Jun's three-corpse god was in a rage. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The terrifying demonic light of the Tongtian was steaming, and his entire being became extremely cold. You're dreaming if you want the Hong Meng immortal qi. Yi Xian sneered sinisterly and charged towards Emperor Jun. I'll take your life. Emperor Jun roared. Previously, Yi Xian had humiliated him. Now, he was fighting over the Hong Meng immortal qi. All of this made Emperor Jun want to kill Yi Xian. Rumble. Emperor Jun fully unleashed his cultivation and raised his essence, energy and spirit to the peak. 108 halos blossomed with a domineering radiance and interweaved into a terrifying array diagram behind him. Let's see how capable you are. Rumble. The heavens shook and all things were destroyed. Yi Xian's undying true spirit in his sea of consciousness buzzed, and his origin immortal physique glowed. When his spirit and body became one, Yi Xian's aura soared to his peak state. Buzz. An extremely terrifying scene appeared behind Yi Xian. In the middle of the sea of blood, a blood moon rose, giving people a strange and terrifying feeling. 8 demons heavenly fire. Emperor Jun roared. 108 halos behind him glowed brightly. 8 grand arts were condensed and turned into 8 heavenly fire suns. They rushed towards Yi Xian to destroy him. Obviously, Emperor Jun knew that his body was no match for Yi Xian. His strongest point was his divine sense. Therefore, he kept a safe distance from Yi Xian and wanted to kill Yi Xian. Competing with divine sense? You're still far from it. Yi Xian laughed wildly. 9 suns illuminating the sky. Bang! 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 Yi Xian roared towards the sky, and an extremely terrifying thing happened. The sound of 9 great Daos exploding rang out between heaven and earth, and a strange light that pierced through the 3 realms bloomed. Ripples appeared in the void as 9 black sun grand suns appeared between heaven and earth. These black sun grand suns were pitch black, but they were emitting an extremely strange light. It made people feel as if their souls were being pulled in by them at first glance. 9 suns illuminating sky, a quasi-saint secret art. This art was recorded in the immortal scripture, and could only be cultivated by a quasi-saint. It was a killing art that used the laws of heaven and earth. Die! The 9 black goat great suns rotated endlessly behind Yi Xian, releasing a scorching destructive power. At this moment, Yi Xian was swinging his arms, and the 9 golden sun great suns moved with him. The terrifying power they emitted caused the space to become unstable, and spatial cracks appeared one after another. Rumble. The 9 black goat-like suns were like stars at dawn. They carried a destructive power that obliterated Di Jun. On the other hand, Di Jun was roaring ferociously. The 8 demonic arts turned into shocking fire dragons and bombarded Yi Xian. Rumble. Heavenly fire set the prairie ablaze, and everything was destroyed. When the 2 peerless arts collided, the world fell into a vacuum. Even the chaotic laws of heaven and earth were annihilated. Go to hell. You're the one who's going to die. Yi Xian and Di Jun roared as the 2 of them engaged in a fierce battle. All sorts of unimaginable divine abilities intersected with each other, and a scene of the destruction of the heavens and the earth appeared. The 2 of them fought with all their might, and entered a white-hot state. However, no one collected the Hong Meng immortal qi. The other quasi-saints started another chaotic battle, as if they wanted to destroy the world. Mountains and rivers were destroyed, and everything was turned into dust. The whole Longevity Mountain was shattered by the quasi-saints. The undulating mountains collapsed, and the 100,000 miles long river vaporized into smoke. It was too bright and too terrifying. The battle between the quasi-saints could be said to be destructive. Thousands of miles of land collapsed and hot magma gushed out from the Earth's core. The boundless sky was collapsing and regenerating. The Emperor of Feng, due through a punch at Kuanping. Kong Xian was fighting ancestor of all creation, and Taoist Qing Tian alone. Zhen Yuanzi and Zhurong were fighting each other. Only Taoist Lan Yu was approaching the Hong Meng immortal qi. However, every time he tried to collect it, he would be attacked by the quasi-saints. The heavens collapsed, the earth cracked, and all living things were destroyed. This battle lasted for a total of 7 days and 7 nights. Gradually, everyone became enraged. Their eyes were already blood red. They only wanted to kill their opponents before them, and seize the primordial violet vapor. Chapter 717. The battle had reached its climax. The sage-to-be had gone berserk. Countless Daoyuo Jingxian had been caught in the crossfire and died tragically. 10,000 manifestations of the world. Suddenly, Dijun roared to the sky. His whole body underwent a terrifying transformation. 108 halos behind him shone brilliantly and instantly covered him. He also quickly distanced himself from Yi Xian. The Hong Meng immortal vapor is mine. Dijun finally stopped hiding his cultivation and directly unleashed his strongest superpower. 108 halos rotated in a terrifying rotation. The demonic light that shook heaven and earth swept in all directions and forced Landia and the others to retreat. Dijun's speed was so fast that the sage-to-be did not have time to react. He instantly grabbed the Hong Meng immortal vapor in his hand and madly fled into the distance without looking back. Stay here. The Emperor of Fengdu sublimated himself to the extreme. The Ghost Heaven Grand technique sealed the heaven and earth and instantly blocked Dijun's path. A ghastly ghost saber appeared in his hand and slashed at Dijun. It was also at this moment that all the sage-to-be arrived. All kinds of killing techniques were launched at Dijun. Bang! 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 Yi Xian punched Dijun's chest. Zhen Yuanzi's universe in the sleeve suppressed Dijun Kong Xian, and Kuan Peng attacked Dijun violently. Zhurong was even more ruthless. He directly reached for Dijun's glabella, as if he wanted to grab his sage-to-be true spirit and destroy it. His life was on the line. Although the Hong Meng immortal vapor was good, he had to be alive to take it. Facing the attacks of the sage-to-be, Dijun immediately made a decision. He immediately threw out the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Although he was severely injured, he still borrowed the power of the sage-to-be's bombardment to retreat from the battlefield. Puff! Dijun spat out blood, and his body was cracked. Although he was the demon race's celestial emperor, he had no power to fight back in the face of so many sage-to-be. What made Dijun feel both unwilling and fortunate was that the sage-to-be began to fight for the Hong Meng immortal vapor again instead of attacking him. It was a pity that he had lost the Hong Meng immortal vapor that he had just obtained. This made Dijun extremely unwilling. Moreover, Dijun was already severely injured from the attacks of the sage-to-be. If he forcibly seized Hong Meng immortal vapor, he would be in danger. I got it. In this chaotic battle between quasi-saints, Ancestor Wanxiang laughed wildly. Hong Meng immortal qi had somehow fallen into his hands, causing him to roar in excitement. Treasure, please turn around. Taoist immortal vapor. And Taoist. And Landia bowed towards the gourd. And calm. The green gourd swayed in the void. The mouth of the gourd opened, and a beam of ascension immortal light shot out. It instantly disappeared before the eyes of the quasi-saints. No. A beam of green light instantly pierced through the Wanxiang ancestor's forehead, causing him to let out a shrill cry of despair. However, his forehead was being annihilated inch by inch until it spread to his entire body. With a muffled sound, the Wanxiang ancestor had actually turned into dust between heaven and earth. Immortal flying saber? Yi Xian immortal vapor froze and left the battlefield instantly. The other sage-to-be did the same. They all kept a safe distance from Landia. Buzz. The Hong Meng immortal vapor was once again ownerless. However, none of the sage-to-be dared to act rashly. They focused their attention on Taoist Landia and looked at him with a heavy heart. Although Ancestor immortal vapor had just become a sage-to-be, he was still a sage-to-be. However, Landia immortal vapor was too terrifying. The green gourd in his hand could kill a sage-to-be. Fear, great fear. The sage-to-be felt heavy. They did not expect the immortal flying saber in Landia immortal vapor's hand to be so terrifying. Everyone, if we continue to fight like this, no one will get the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Instead, it is very likely that you will die here. Why don't we draw lots to decide who will get the Hong Meng immortal vapor? Landia immortal vapor said solemnly. He did not show his strong side, because of the immortal flying saber. At this moment, Zhen Yuanzi immortal vapor came to his side. The two of them looked at the sage-to-be together. Okay, I agree. Emperor Jun immortal vapor narrowed his eyes, and was the first to agree. He was severely injured and ancestor Immortal Vapor had died. He had become the weakest party. If they continued to fight, his chances of getting the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor were too slim. Since Taoist Landia Immortal Vapor has proposed, the three of us have no objection. Yi Xian Immortal Vapor narrowed his eyes and smiled. However, no one noticed that a strange look flashed across Yi Xian Immortal Vapor's eyes. Okay, I have no objection as well. The Emperor of Fengdu coldly agreed. Clearly, he was not confident that he could get the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor if they continued to fight. As the Sage-to-be Immortals agreed one after another, the chaotic battle between the Sage-to-be Immortals finally came to an end. However, drawing lots was one thing. The Sage-to-be Immortals present were not fools. They would not allow anyone to play any tricks in the process. Taoist Landia Immortal Vapor naturally knew what the Sage-to-be Immortals were thinking, so he suggested, for the sake of fairness, how about we let someone else preside over the drawing of lots? Who is that someone else? Emperor Jun frowned and asked directly. At this moment, all the Grand Luo Immortals were either dead or injured. The Daluo Jingxian Immortals who were spared from the massacre had already fled. At this moment, there were only a few of them present. Is this person your disciple? Suddenly, Taoist Landia Immortal Vapor waved his hand, and a figure was instantly sucked over. It was the personal disciple of the Emperor of Fengdu, Huang Maji. Clearly, he did not leave, but hid in the distance to observe the battle. Maji, the Emperor of Fengdu, was stunned. A look of joy flashed across his eyes. He then smiled and said, "That's right. This person is my disciple. I have no objections to letting him preside over the drawing of lots." What a joke. Do you really think we are 3-year-old children? If he plays any tricks in the process, wouldn't it be helping Fengdu? Emperor Jun sneered and rebuked, directly refuting the suggestion. Clearly, Huang Maji was the disciple of the Emperor of Feng. The other Sage-to-be Immortals were not fools. How could they let this person preside over the drawing of lots? Friends, there is no need to quarrel. We can seal this person's cultivation, and he will definitely not play any tricks. What do you think of my suggestion? Zhen Yuanzi said softly. Hearing Zhen Yuanzi Immortal Vapor's words, the Sage-to-be Immortals were speechless. Clearly, this suggestion was fair. As long as Huang Maji's cultivation was sealed, he would not be able to play any tricks even if he wanted to. Taoist Zhen Yuan Immortal Vapor is right. Let's seal this person's cultivation, and let him preside over the drawing of lots. Suddenly, just as the Sage-to-be Immortals were deep in thought, Yi Xian Immortal Vapor spoke calmly. Behind him, Kong Xian and Kunping's expressions changed slightly. Chapter 718. Celestial Emperor, you can't do that. He is the disciple of the Emperor of Fengdu, although his cultivation has been sealed. What if something goes wrong, and the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor? Kunping secretly transmitted his voice, obviously worried. A worthy younger brother, it's not impossible for the three of us to get the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Why don't we? Kong Xian transmitted his voice coldly. Obviously, the three of them had a high chance of winning. As long as they paid a certain price, they might be able to get the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond to the two's suggestion. A strange look flashed across his eyes. No one knew what Yi Xian was thinking. All right, then let this person take charge of this matter. Emperor Jun finally made a decision. What happened next was simple. Yi Xian and Emperor Jun agreed. Even if the other sages-to-be had other opinions, they could only obey the majority. Maji, don't be nervous. Come forward. The Emperor of Fengdu said calmly, and secretly gave Huang Maji a look. However, before Huang Maji could step forward, Emperor Jun stopped him instantly, and turned back to look at the Emperor of Fengdu with a sneer. Fengdu, don't try to be mysterious in front of me. You are his master. You'd better stay away from him. You? The Emperor of Fengdu's expression changed. He glared at Emperor Jun with great disappointment in his eyes, but he could not say anything. Little friend, go and find 8 green stones and a purple stone. Put them in a cloth bag. Whoever can catch the purple stone will get the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Taoist Landia said to Huang Maji with a smile. Yes, Yes, I will do as you say. Huang Maji's face was pale, and he left under the burning gazes of the other sages-to-be. However, none of the sages-to-be present could follow him, because everyone's cultivation was extremely strong. If anyone used a secret skill, they would certainly be detected by others. Half an hour passed. Huang Maji finally came back with a cloth bag in his hand. No one could see what was inside. My friends, it's best not to use your Dharma eyes to see what's inside the bag. If anyone violates the rules, he will lose the right to get the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor. Zhen Yuanzi said softly. This also made some of the emperors and emperor of Feng Du's expressions change slightly. They could only withdraw their Dharma eyes. After all, everyone present was a quasi-sage. It was impossible for anyone to play any tricks here. The following matters were extremely serious, and Huang Maji's cultivation was sealed. Huang Maji's face was pale as he looked anxiously at the other quasi-saints. However, the other quasi-saints were all staring at the pouch in his hand, their eyes burning with passion. Before the drawing of lots begins, we have to agree on 3 rules. If anyone draws a violet stone, then the primordial violet energy will belong to that person. The others are not allowed to fight for it again, otherwise, we'll attack together and annihilate that person on the spot. Taoist Luya warned with a cold voice. No one rejected Landya's suggestion. This was a matter of course. Otherwise, if someone really got the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor, and the others fought for it again, wouldn't it be meaningless? I'll go first. Zhen Yuanzi strode forward, and was the first to put his hand into the bag. The other sages-to-be watched nervously, afraid that Zhen Yuanzi would get the purple stone. Phew! The other sages-to-be heaved a sigh of relief, because Zhen Yuanzi did not draw the purple stone. However, everyone's forehead was covered in sweat, as if they had gone through a life-and-death battle. It seems that I'm not fated to get the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor. Zhen Yuanzi smiled bitterly and retreated. I'll do it. Zhu Rong strode forward and reached his hand into the pouch. He groped around for a while, and took out a green stone. This caused his expression to change. He let out a long sigh and retreated. At this moment, there were only 7 stones left in the bag. One of them was a purple stone. This made the remaining sages-to-be even more nervous. However, no one noticed that Yi Xian's expression was calm. There was no emotion in his eyes, as if he did not care who the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor belonged to. However, Yi Xian looked at Huang Maji with a strange look in his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. Taoist Qing Tian strode forward anxiously and groped around in the bag for more than 10 breaths. However, he still drew the green stone. This made him very disappointed and he retreated. As the drawing continued, the atmosphere became increasingly tense. Landya did not draw the purple stone, but he was not disappointed. He smiled and retreated. Let me do it. Suddenly, Yi Xian took a step forward and arrived in front of Huang Maji. When the two of them looked at each other, they instantly separated. Don't let him get the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor. Emperor Jun's eyes were bloodshot. He was screaming in his heart. Blue veins bulged on his forehead, proving how shaken he was. You can definitely draw it. You can definitely draw it. Kuanping murmured in a trembling voice. He stared at Yi Xian because he believed that Yi Xian must be the 7th heaven-destined saint. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Xian. Yi Xian finally put his hand into the bag, under the gaze of all the sages-to-be. Without any hesitation or nervousness, Yi Xian casually took out a stone. As he opened his palm, Di Jun and the others let out a long sigh of relief, as wild laughter came from their mouths. Haha! Emperor Jun's face turned red and he mocked. Yi Xian, if you want the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor, wait for your next life. It turned out that Yi Xian had also drawn a cyan stone. Obviously, he had missed the chance to get the Hong Meng Immortal Vapor. Facing Emperor Jun's ridicule, Kuanping's and Kong Xian's disappointment, and the other sages-to-be's gloating, Yi Xian remained calm and returned to his original position. It doesn't matter, a worthy younger brother. Kuanping and I have not drawn the lot yet. We still have a chance. Kong Xian secretly comforted Yi Xian. Hearing Kong Xian's announcement, Yi Xian smiled and did not say anything, as if he did not care about the Hong Meng immortal vapor at all. Let me. Suddenly, Emperor Jun strode forward, his face red and trembling. At this moment, more than half of the people had drawn the lot, but none of them had drawn the Hong Meng immortal vapor. This meant that he had a high chance of drawing the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Emperor Jun inhaled slowly and exhaled slowly. His face became extremely solemn. Finally, he put his hand into the bag. When he slowly took out the stone from the bag and opened his palm, Emperor Jun's face turned pale, and he was stunned on the spot. Impossible, impossible, why didn't I draw it? Emperor Jun roared in a low voice because the stone in his hand was cyan. Chapter 7:19. Unwillingness, disappointment, anger, and all sorts of emotions grew in Emperor Jun's heart. He even had thoughts of snatching the Hong Meng immortal vapor. However, when he felt the cold gazes of the other quasi-saints, he woke up instantly and could only return to his original position helplessly. Emperor Jun, it seems like the Hong Meng immortal vapor is not fated with you? Kong Xian sneered. This also made Emperor Jun grit his teeth and glanced at Yi Xian and the rest with hatred. At this moment, only the Emperor of Fengdu and Kuanping Kong Xian had not drawn. Obviously, one of the three of them would get the Hong Meng immortal vapor. However, the three of them did not move forward to draw it. Some people might ask that this kind of drawing was too unfair. Wouldn't the people at the back have a higher chance of winning? In fact, this kind of drawing was fair. There were a total of 9 stones in the cloth bag. It was also a matter of luck. Although the people who chose to draw in front did not have a higher chance of winning, one should not forget that if the people at the front got the purple stone, the people at the back would not have a chance. At this moment, Kuanping and Kong Xian looked at each other. Both of them had a look of excitement in their eyes. This was because the two of them had a 2/3 chance of getting the Hong Meng immortal vapor. The one who was under the most pressure now was the Emperor of Fengdu, although there were only 3 stones left in the cloth bag. If he drew the green stone, he would lose the chance of getting the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Fight it out! Suddenly, the Emperor of Fengdu roared in his heart. He strode to Huang Maji and reached his hand into the cloth bag. After a slight groping, he took out the stone from the cloth bag. Haha! When the Emperor of Fengdu looked at his palm, he saw a purple stone. He was stunned at first, and his pale face turned red. Then he started to laugh excitedly. I got it! I got it! The Hong Meng immortal vapor is mine! The Emperor of Fengdu no longer had the majesty of a ghost emperor. It was as if he had turned into an excited child, who was dancing with joy to express his excitement. Impossible! This must be the doing of this person. Suddenly, the monarch roared in anger. His face was extremely ashen, and he pointed at Huang Maji as he roared. This person is a disciple of Fengdu. So why did he manage to get it when we didn't? There must be something fishy about this. I didn't do anything. I really didn't. Huang Maji was so scared that he almost cried. His legs went soft and he fell to the ground. The pouch in his hand also fell down. 2 blue stones fell out of the pouch. Emperor Jun, what do you mean? My disciple's cultivation has been sealed, and all of you are here to witness it. How can he be a ghost? The Emperor of Fengdu's expression changed drastically as he reprimanded Emperor Jun. There must be a ghost here. I'm not convinced. I need to capture it again. Emperor Jun had already gone mad. He could not afford to lose the Hong Meng immortal vapor. At this moment, he no longer cared about his dignity. He looked at the Emperor of Fengdu with an indescribable murderous intent. Humph! Yi Xian snorted disdainfully. He looked at Emperor Jun with a sneer and said, How dare you, the celestial emperor of the demon race, be so shameless? You are a disgrace to the ancient demon court. Yi Xian, you? Emperor Jun roared after being berated by Yi Xian. He wanted to refute Yi Xian, but in the end, he did not because he knew that he was in the wrong. At this moment, the Emperor of Fengdu did not expect Yi Xian to stand up for him. This made him look at Yi Xian with gratitude. Since fellow Taoist Fengdu has drawn the purple stone, the Hong Meng immortal vapor should belong to him. Zhen Yuanzi said softly. As Zhen Yuanzi's words fell, The other quasi-saints' expressions changed slightly. There was great hesitation in their eyes, and there was even a faint murderous intent. Obviously, to ask them to give up the Hongmeng immortal vapor was like cutting off their hearts. Why, fellow Taoists, are you going back on your words? Landya frowned, and his voice became slightly cold. As the two quasi-saints spoke, and Yi Xian looked on indifferently, Emperor Jun and the others felt hatred in their hearts. They could only nod and remain silent. Thank you, fellow Taoists, for letting me win. When I become a saint in the future, I will never forget your kindness. The Emperor of Fengdu's face flushed red. He strode toward the Hongmeng immortal vapor and kept it in his bag. Emperor Jun and the others looked gloomy, but they did not make a move. I will take my leave now. In the future, I will personally pay you a visit and thank you for today's kindness. The Emperor of Fengdu put on a fake smile. He rolled up the dark light that covered the sky and took Huang Maji with him as he turned into a beam of light and left. The remaining quasi-saints narrowed their eyes and dispersed. They did not even bid farewell to each other when they left. Let's go too. Yi Xian called out to Kuanping and Kong Xian. A golden cloud rose under his feet, and he returned to the 33rd heaven celestial court. Celestial Emperor, are you really going to give up on the Hongmeng immortal vapor? In the boundless sky, the void surged. Yi Xian was slowly walking, but the Kuanping suddenly stopped him and looked at Yi Xian with an anxious expression. Yes, a worthy younger brother. Look at how Emperor Jun and the others left in such a hurry. They are obviously going to intercept Feng. We should go quickly. If we are late, I am afraid the Hongmeng immortal vapor will fall into the hands of others. Kong Xian also anxiously reminded Yi Xian. Haha. Suddenly Yi Xian laughed. However, his laughter was very strange. This made the two quasi-saints stunned. They did not know why Yi Xian laughed. Everything is under my control. Emperor Jun and the others will not be able to get the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Yi Xian laughed heartily and walked forward again. This made Kuanping and Kong Xian stunned. They did not know why Yi Xian looked so confident. A worthy younger brother? What is going on? Kong Xian quickly caught up with Yi Xian and asked the question in his heart. Elder brother, don't worry. You will know in a while. Yi Xian replied with a smile. However, the conveyance light around him became more and more intense. He was heading east at an extremely fast speed. This made the two quasi-saints follow him in surprise. Dongsheng Divine Continent Tongtian Peak. A pavilion surrounded by clouds stood on the peak of the peak. It gave people a feeling of falling into a fairyland. Yi Xian sat in the pavilion. Kong Xian and Kuanping stood beside him. However, the two of them were extremely anxious. They did not know why Yi Xian had brought them here. Psst! Suddenly, a shadow cut across the sky and appeared on the peak of Tongtian Peak. He strode towards Yi Xian with a flattering smile on his face. Sir! The person entered the pavilion quickly and knelt down in front of Yi Xian. There was a look of excitement on his face. Haha, Fatso Huang, it has been hard on you. Yi Xian laughed as he intimately helped this person up. This caused Kuanping and Kong Xian to be stunned on the spot. Kuanping and Kong Xian could not believe their eyes. They felt that they had fallen into a dream. What did they see? Chapter 720. Huang Maji, the personal disciple of the Emperor of Fengdu, appeared in front of them at this moment and bowed to Yi Xian. How could they believe this? Sir, how is Fatso Huang's performance? Huang Maji, no, he should be called Fatso Huang, laughed flatteringly at this moment. As his palms and fingers flipped, an item appeared in his hand. It was the Hongmeng immortal vapor that the sage-to-be desired. Haha! In the past 100,000 years, the most capable subordinate of Yi Xian is you, Fatso Huang. You really didn't disappoint me. Yi Xian laughed heartily and took the Hongmeng immortal vapor in his hand. Even though Yi Xian was usually calm, he was extremely excited at this moment. His body and mind were trembling to the extreme, proving how excited he was. They're really stupid. They thought that everything would be fine just because they sealed my cultivation. Unfortunately, they didn't know that when I was a mortal, I was already very proficient in the tricks of the mortal world. Even if I lost my cultivation, I could still give the purple stone to whomever I wanted. Fatso Huang laughed out loud. His face was full of flattery and a touch of complacency. Obviously, being able to play with a group of sage-to-be in the palm of his hand gave him a great sense of vanity. Well done. You didn't disappoint me. Unfortunately, from now on, you can't stay by the side of the old man of Fengdu, but it's not a big deal to get the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Yi Xian laughed heartily. Celestial Emperor. What's going on? Kunping said in shock. Obviously, he was already shocked to the extreme. Until now, he still couldn't figure out what was going on. Let me introduce you. This is Fatso Huang, my most capable subordinate. In the past, I placed him in the underworld, and he was even accepted as a direct disciple by Fengdu. Unfortunately, the Emperor of Fengdu didn't know that this person is one of mine. Yi Xian was in an extremely good mood after obtaining the primordial violet vapor, so he directly introduced Fatso Huang's identity to the two of them. But why is the primordial violet vapor in fellow Taoist Huang's hands? Kong Xian asked in surprise. Senior Kong Xian, let me explain. Fatso Huang smiled and began to narrate the whole story. It turned out that when the primordial violet energy appeared, Yi Xian had sent a voice transmission to Fatso Huang, asking him to act according to the situation and seize the primordial violet energy if he had the chance. Of course, Yi Xian didn't put his hopes on Fatso Huang. After all, Fatso Huang was only at the Zenith Heaven realm. It was impossible for him to participate in this sage-to-be contest. But he never expected that the primordial violet vapor would belong to someone by drawing lots in the end. And Fatso Huang's timely appearance gave him the best opportunity. Fatso Huang was not from the Earth Immortal realm. In the past, he had followed Yi Xian as a mortal and had seen many sinister people. His character was even more insidious and vicious. Although he wasn't keen on cultivation, he was extremely proficient in some unorthodox methods. This was also why Yi Xian valued him. A small mortal trick could directly cover the sky and the sea. The sage-to-be couldn't use their cultivation to check it. Naturally, they didn't know that Fatso Huang had already played tricks in the cloth bag. Moreover, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang didn't need to send a voice transmission. They could understand each other's thoughts with just a glance. This was also a tacit understanding formed over many years. Under Yi Xian's signal, Fatso Huang directly let the Emperor of Fengdu draw the purple stone. This was also the process of drawing lots. As for why the primordial violet vapor was in Fatso Huang's hands, the reason was actually very simple. The Emperor of Fengdu was not stupid. How could he not know that the other sage-to-be wanted to kill him when he hurriedly left with Fatso Huang? And Fatso Huang was his personal disciple. Although the primordial violet vapor was important, the other sage-to-be would definitely keep a close eye on him. The only right choice was to let Fatso Huang keep the primordial violet vapor and let him bring it back to the nether world. When Fatso Huang left with the primordial violet vapor, the Emperor of Fengdu was indeed besieged by Emperor Jun and the others. At this moment, it was unknown how far the battle had progressed. However, the Emperor of Fengdu had never thought that his personal disciple Fatso Huang would be one of Yi Xian's men. Everything about him had been calculated by Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. When he knew this result, the Emperor of Fengdu would be furious and would definitely hate Yi Xian and Fatso Huang to death. When Fatso Huang finished narrating the whole story, Kunping and Kong Xian were already in a daze. They only recovered after a dozen breaths. However, they looked at Yi Xian with an extremely complicated expression. Terrifying, too terrifying, so terrifying that it was unimaginable. The two of them had never thought that Yi Xian's shrewdness was so deep that he could play the sage-to-be in the palm of his hand. He even obtained the primordial violet vapor, an unimaginable treasure. I, your humble servant, admire you. Kunping bowed. He was in awe of Yi Xian from the bottom of his heart. He was deeply grateful that he had chosen to follow Yi Xian. If he had really returned to the ancient demon court, with Yi Xian's means, he would definitely die without a burial place in the future. Haha, a worthy younger brother, I really admire you. Kong Xian laughed loudly with great admiration in his eyes. The primordial violet vapor is the key to becoming a saint. How can I really give it up? Yi Xian said with a slight smile. Yi Xian had obtained the primordial violet vapor, and Fatso Huang had returned. The two sage-to-be admired him from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Xian could be said to have won a complete victory. At this moment, the four of them were in an extremely good mood. My fellow Taoist, your trick is indeed a good trick. I admire you. Suddenly, an abrupt voice was heard. The void rippled, and a Taoist in indigo walked out slowly. He was looking calmly at Yi Xian. Landia. Kunping's expression changed drastically. Black and white demonic light burst out, and an extremely terrifying power bloomed. He looked at Landia, with an extremely solemn expression. Landia, you shouldn't have appeared. Kong Xian's eyes were cold and sharp. The five-colored divine light rippled out. He also didn't expect Landia to appear in front of them. Wouldn't everything be exposed to Landia? At this moment, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and the smile on his face had disappeared. He also didn't expect that Landia would see through his trick and let him follow him here. You want to kill me? Landia smiled and walked slowly towards Yi Xian and the others. However, there was no aura around him. Instead, he smiled and nodded at Yi Xian. Back off. Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke softly. This caused the Kunping and Kong Xian to be stunned, but they still restrained their killing intent. However, their gazes towards Taoist Luya were extremely unfriendly, and there was even a hint of seriousness in them. It should be known that Landia's cultivation was extremely high, and he was not to be trifled with even among the sage-to-be. Moreover, his immortal slaying flying dagger had just killed a sage-to-be. Even if the three of them joined forces, they might not be able to kill him. If Landia spread the news that Yi Xian had obtained the Hong Meng immortal qi, it would definitely lead to an unimaginable calamity for Yi Xian. Clap, clap, clap. Yi Xian clapped his hands gently. He looked at Landia indifferently and said, My fellow Taoist, you are indeed extraordinary. You can see through my trick. Haha. Landia laughed loudly and said, Yi Tiandi, you must be joking. In fact, I didn't see through your trick. However, I was very curious. Emperor Jun and the others have already gone to kill fellow Taoist of Fengdu for the Hong Meng immortal qi. Why didn't Yi Tiandi take the Hong Meng immortal qi seriously? That's why I followed you all the way. I wanted to see what secrets you were hiding. So you see it now? Yi Xian stood up slowly with a gentle smile on his face. However, the world was gradually darkening. An extremely terrifying aura locked onto Landia and sealed the world tightly. Chapter 721. Do you think you can kill me? Landia smiled. Only a dead man can keep a secret, Yi Xian said softly with a smile. But his smile was filled with endless killing intent. He looked at Landia with a cruel gaze. Dong dong dong. The void rumbled as killing intent overflowed. Kunping and Kong Xian stepped forward, faintly blocking Landia's path. Their terrifying qi locked onto Landia, obviously not letting him leave this place. Obviously, the Hong Meng immortal vapor was of great importance. If this news were to spread, it would definitely bring endless trouble to Yi Xian. Only by killing Landia here could this secret be kept. Wait, before Yi Xian and the other two could make a move, Landia suddenly spoke. The smile on his face disappeared, and the gaze he looked at Yi Xian with became solemn. Yi Tiandi, can you listen to me? Landia said in a deep voice. Oh. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and did not make a move immediately. He felt that Landia was strange. He knew that there were three sage-to-be on his side, but he still dared to appear in front of him. This was a big question. Do you think that as long as you kill me, the news of you obtaining the Hong Meng immortal vapor will not be leaked? Landia said leisurely. Is that not the case? Yi Xian sneered. Fellow Taoist, your intelligence is indeed unparalleled. However, fellow Taoist, if you recall carefully, even though you did not reveal anything, this Huang Maji was unable to conceal his whereabouts. Luya pointed at Fatty Huang and spoke with a deep voice. As Landia finished speaking, Yi Xian's expression changed slightly, as if he had thought of something. His aura instantly became gloomy. Landia sighed and said, It seems that you've guessed it. Although Huang Maji is fellow Taoist's man, fellow Taoist. Don't forget that the Emperor of Feng Du gave him such an important item to bring back to the underworld. How could he not do something to him? Moreover, you should know that Emperor Jun and the others have been blinded by greed. They are currently besieging the Emperor of Feng Du. When they wake up and realize that there is indeed no Hong Meng immortal vapor on the Emperor of Feng Du, they will definitely know that you have obtained this item. Sir, this? Fatso Huang's expression changed as he looked directly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not waste any time. A beam of divine light shot out from his hand and instantly enveloped Fatso Huang. Ah! A painful cry came from Fatso Huang's mouth. A beam of dark light was forced out from his back. However, it instantly dissipated in the void as if it had never appeared. The great art of ghost heaven, traceless heavens. This is the Emperor of Feng Du's unique secret skill. He must have already known that you have obtained the Hong Meng immortal vapor, and that his good disciple has betrayed him. Landia sighed. Damn it! Bang! Yi Xian's expression was gloomy and extremely ferocious. He even smashed the mountain peak in the distance with his palm, proving how furious he was. Yi Xian had miscalculated one thing. These sages-to-be were all cunning old foxes. Although the Emperor of Feng Du had given the Hong Meng immortal vapor to Fatso Huang, he had also taken precautions against Fatso Huang. Moreover, Fatso Huang was just Daoyuo Jingxian. How could he have noticed that the Emperor of Feng Du had done something to him? What should he do? Something big was going to happen. Yi Xian was anxious and uneasy. His expression became extremely solemn. Although he had obtained the Hong Meng immortal vapor, he would become the target of public criticism if the news spread throughout the three realms. At that time, countless sages-to-be would kill their way to the celestial court. The celestial court would also face an unprecedented calamity. Perhaps it would be buried between heaven and earth in an instant. Hong Meng immortal vapor. This was a treasure that sages-to-be dreamed of, and the key to becoming a saint. Even if the Hong Meng immortal vapor was in the hands of a saint, these sages-to-be would dare to risk their lives to fight for it, let alone Yi Xian. Sir, looking at Yi Xian's solemn expression, Fatso Huang was extremely ashamed. If he had discovered that the Emperor of Feng Du had done something to him earlier, he would not have leaked the news. It's not your fault. I was too careless. Yi Xian slowly shook his head and comforted Fatso Huang. This was because Fatso Huang had already done a good job. It was his carelessness that led to his carelessness. Celestial Emperor, what should we do now? Kunpeng asked solemnly. Obviously, when the news of Yi Xian obtaining the Hong Meng immortal vapor was leaked, it would definitely attract countless sages-to-be. This was an unimaginable calamity for them. A worthy younger brother, do you have the heart to cut off all means of retreat? Suddenly Kong Xian growled coldly. A ruthless look flashed across his eyes. Brother, what do you want to say? Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. He looked at Kong Xian, as if he had guessed Kong Xian's inner thoughts. The Hong Meng immortal vapor is of great importance. It is also a necessary item for you to become a saint. It must not fall into the hands of others. If a worthy younger brother is willing to give up the entire celestial court, Kunpeng and I will travel the world with you. We will even become your protectors until you become the 7th saint in the world. Then we will rebuild the celestial court. As Kong Xian's words fell, the world became extremely silent. Kunpeng looked at Yi Xian with burning eyes. Obviously, he agreed with this proposal. The position of Celestial Emperor and the 33rd Celestial Court were just empty titles. If he gave up the entire Celestial Court, he could eventually become a saint. This price was not unacceptable. If it were Kunpeng, he would definitely agree with Kong Xian's proposal. Kong Xian and Kunpeng looked at Yi Xian with burning eyes. As long as Yi Xian nodded, they would not appear in the three realms until Yi Xian became a saint. Of course, this price would be the destruction of the Celestial Court. Because the various sages-to-be could not find Yi Xian, their burning anger would definitely fall on the 33rd Celestial Court. This would also completely destroy the Celestial Court. At this moment, Yi Xian frowned. He naturally knew that Kong Xian's proposal was right. This was also the best solution for him. However, Yi Xian did not immediately agree. It was not that Yi Xian cared about the title of Celestial Emperor, nor was it that Yi Xian was reluctant to part with the troops of the Celestial Court. For his own cultivation, he could sacrifice too many people's lives. However, there were some things that could be given up. But there were some things that could not be given up even if he died. This was Yi Xian's pride in his way of life. The Jade Pool of the Celestial Court and the Empyrean Ferry were waiting for him bitterly. Yi Xian had even taken care of the entire Celestial Court for him. There were also the various demon kings who had followed him in the lower domain. Yi Xian had once promised them that as long as they followed him, Yi Xian would definitely lead them to dominate the entire 3 realms. If he abandoned the entire Celestial Court, wouldn't he be considered a traitor? Yi Xian did not care about his reputation. However, he was a man and a proud man. He could not do such a thing. Chapter 722. The most important question was whether the Hongmeng Immortal Qi could make him a sage. As everyone knew, there were 3 ways to become a sage in the world. The other 2 were needless to say. Becoming a sage by relying on Hongmeng Immortal Qi was also called becoming a sage by virtue. This kind of saint ascension technique was the simplest. It required one to have primordial violet qi, as well as an enormous amount of merit to support one's body. Only then could one become a saint. However, don't forget that Yi Xian walked the path of using strength to prove his Tao, not some path of virtue to become a saint. Even if he gave up on using strength to prove his Tao, and chose to become a saint through virtue, where did this virtue come from? No, we can't give up on the Celestial Court. Suddenly, Yi Xian came back from his thoughts and rejected Kong Xian's suggestion. Kong Xian and Kuan Peng's expressions changed slightly as anxiety flashed in their eyes. A worthy younger brother, you have to understand that now is not the time to act on impulse. Although we have given up on the Celestial Court, but... Before Kong Xian could finish, Yi Xian shook his head slowly and interrupted. Elder brother, there are some things that I can't tell you in detail. This method won't work at all. As Yi Xian's words fell, Kong Xian and Kuan Peng sighed helplessly and could not continue to persuade Yi Xian. My friend, don't worry. In fact, there is a solution to this matter. Landia smiled and said, Yi Xian looked at Landia with a gloomy look in his eyes. He said in a low voice, What solution do you have? Yi Daoyu, don't forget that although the Emperor of Fengdu knew that the Hongmeng Immortal Qi was in your hands, Emperor Jun and the others did not know about it. Even if the Emperor of Fengdu told them that you had the Hongmeng Immortal Qi, as long as you deny it, they can't do anything to you. And don't forget that the Hongmeng Immortal Qi was taken away by Fengdu himself. He is the biggest suspect. Landia said with a kind smile on his face. Upon hearing Landia's words, Yi Xian's face froze for a moment before a light flashed in his eyes. That's right. As long as he didn't admit it. Even if the great Emperor of Fengdu revealed the news of him obtaining the primordial violet vapor. So what? One had to know that the primordial violet vapor was taken away by the Emperor of Fengdu himself. He was the biggest suspect. Yi Xian suddenly realized that he had overcomplicated the matter. If it weren't for Landia's reminder, he probably wouldn't have been able to walk out of this dead end. Why are you helping me? Yi Xian looked directly at Landia, hoping to see through his thoughts. However, Landia was still smiling, so no one could tell what he was thinking. Fellow Taoist, you're the 7th heavens will saint. I know that I'm not fated to be a saint, so I naturally want to form a good relationship with you. Other than that, I have no other intentions. Landia said leisurely, as if what he said was true. He just wanted to form a good relationship with Yi Xian, the future saint. Thank you for your reminder. Yi Xian thanks you. Yi Xian's gloomy expression was no longer there. A smile appeared on his face as he cupped his hands and bowed to Landia, as if he really believed what Landia had said. Before I leave, I have to remind you of one thing. Huang Maji needs to conceal his identity. If Emperor Jun and the others know that he's your man, it means that the primordial violet vapor is indeed in your hands. At that time, even if you flatly deny it, it'll be useless. Landia spoke softly, and then slowly disappeared into the void. It was as if he had come here to express his goodwill to Yi Xian, and was thinking for Yi Xian's sake. Seeing that Landia had gone far away, the smile on Yi Xian's face gradually disappeared. A touch of coldness flashed across his eyes. Landia is not simple, Yi Xian murmured to himself. First there was Hong Jun, then there was Tian. Landia came first, Kuan Peng said softly. Luya is too mysterious. Even I don't know his background. When the world was created, he was already a Daluo golden immortal. At that time, even though the three pure ones hadn't become saints, they still had to respectfully call him brother. Kuan Peng said softly with a solemn expression on his face. No matter what his purpose is, the primordial violet vapor is now in my hands. I just have to be on guard against him. Let's go. Yi Xian directly called the three of them. A magic cloud rose under his feet, and he returned to the 33rd Celestial Court. After obtaining the primordial violet vapor, Yi Xian had to study it. He had to find out what the use of the primordial violet vapor was, and why it was the key to becoming a saint. Moreover, he had to stay in the Celestial Court, because various quasi-saints would definitely come to the Celestial Court to test whether he had really obtained the primordial violet vapor. If he was not in the Celestial Court, there would definitely be great chaos. At the same time, in the vast sky and boundless land, several figures fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the sky. There was even the quasi-saint's blood sprinkling across the sky. The Emperor of Feng Du fled in a sorry state, with several quasi-saints chasing after him. Feng Du, hand over the primordial violet vapor, and I will spare your life. Emperor Jun attacked violently. Every demon clan art created a scene of destruction. Mountains and rivers were shattered and rivers flowed in reverse. The terrifying scene was indescribable. Not only Di Jun, but Zhurong was also crazily chasing after the Emperor of Feng. Du Qing Tian Daoist was also secretly attacking the Emperor of Feng. The Emperor of Feng had suffered an unprecedented injury due to the encirclement of three presages. I have already said that the primordial violet vapor has already been handed over to my disciple. However, this unscrupulous thing is actually Yi Xian's man. The primordial violet vapor is not in my hands at all. The Emperor of Feng Du was bathed in blood. He was constantly using ghost path art to fend off the attacks of the three quasi-saints. It was no wonder that the Emperor of Feng Du was in such a sorry state. Emperor Jun alone was enough to suppress him. Moreover, there was Zhurong the fire ancestral sorcerer. Even though he was the supreme ghost emperor of the underworld, he was still running for his life. However, the Emperor of Feng Du's eyes were bloodshot. Although he was being chased crazily, his hatred for Yi Xian and Fatso Huang was like a maggot gnawing on his mind. Humiliation, a great humiliation. This was simply a great humiliation. The Emperor of Feng Du had never thought that he would be played by Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. He had even made a wedding dress for Yi Xian. The ghost path art, Traceless Heavens, contained a trace of the Emperor of Feng Du's primordial spirit. No matter where Fatso Huang went, the Emperor of Feng Du would know his whereabouts. This was also the trick he had done to Fatso Huang to prevent any accidents. When he found out the truth of the matter, it caused the Emperor of Feng Du to fly into a rage. He wished that he could tear Fatty Huang and Yi Xian into 10,000 pieces. But Di Jun and the others just had to rush over and surround him. No matter how he explained, Di Jun and the others wouldn't believe him. Hand over the primordial violet vapor. Emperor Jun roared coldly and mercilessly. Emperor Jun, calm down and think about it. Why didn't Yi Xian chase after me like you? Does he not care about the primordial violet vapor? The Emperor of Feng Du fled crazily and roared loudly. Chapter 723. As the Emperor of Feng Du's words fell, Emperor Jun's breath stagnated, and the technique he used to attack the Emperor of Feng Du slowed down. His eyes were filled with uncertainty. That's right. The Hong Meng immortal vapor was the key to becoming a saint. Why didn't Yi Xian come to intercept the Emperor of Feng Du? Did he really not care about becoming a saint? Doubtful, extremely doubtful. As a sage to be, Emperor Jun knew very well how tempting the Hong Meng immortal vapor was to becoming a saint. Brothers, please stop. Suddenly Emperor Jun growled. Zhurong had already retracted his superpowers. Obviously, he had heard the words of the Emperor of Fengdu, and was also doubtful. Obviously, although they were blinded by greed, they were supreme figures in the world, and were not stupid. Obviously, they had also noticed the doubtful points. Brothers, please listen to me. The three sage-to-be stopped finally allowed the Emperor of Fengdu to breathe a sigh of relief. He told the story in an extremely aggrieved manner. However, the more he spoke, the more irritable he became. His face was filled with great humiliation. Could Huang Maji really be Yi Xian's man? Zhurong murmured in surprise. It's not impossible. Otherwise, why would Yi Xian give up the Hong Meng immortal vapor? Emperor Jun's face was filled with uncertainty, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. Brothers, please understand. The Hong Meng immortal vapor is really in Yi Xian's hands. I was also fooled by Yi Xian. The Emperor of Fengdu explained angrily. Suddenly, Emperor Jun snorted coldly. He looked at Emperor Fengdu gloomily and said, Who knows if you are lying or not? If this is just a story made up by you, then aren't you treating us like 3-year-old children? I can make a great vow of the heart demon. Everything I say is true. Otherwise, I will never be able to step into the saint realm. The Emperor of Fengdu made a great vow of the heart demon, and looked at Emperor Jun and the others with shame and anger. As the Emperor of Fengdu made the great vow of the heart demon, Emperor Jun and the others' faces changed slightly. It should be known that the great vow of the heart demon was extremely terrifying. Even sages-to-be did not dare to make such a vow rashly, because breaking such a vow would breed a heart demon during cultivation. The slightest carelessness would cause one's soul to scatter between heaven and earth. Is what he said true? Emperor Jun was bewildered. The fact that Yi Xian did not appear was already a big doubt. At this moment, the great Emperor of Fengdu had made a great oath of the heart demon. How could Emperor Jun not have other thoughts? However, Emperor Jun did not completely trust Fengdu. After all, the Emperor of Fengdu was currently in a life-and-death crisis. Moreover, he had made a great oath of the heart demon in order to hide the Hong Meng immortal vapor. Such a price was not unbearable. Open your Sumeru space and let us see if the Hong Meng immortal qi is really not with you, Emperor Jun said coldly. You? Hearing Emperor Jun's words, the Emperor of Fengdu was furious. It was an insult to him, but he had to lower his head. If he did not prove his innocence, he would be in danger today. Buzz! The void swayed and rippled. The Emperor of Fengdu finally opened his Sumeru space and allowed Emperor Jun and the others to see. However, there was no sign of the Hong Meng immortal qi in his Sumeru space, except for some spiritual weapons of Ghost Path and some divine sense secret skills. The Hong Meng immortal qi is really not with you. Emperor Jun's face was gloomy, and there was great disappointment in his eyes. He did not need to check carefully. Just by sensing with his primordial spirit, he knew that the Hong Meng immortal qi was indeed not with the Emperor of Fengdu. The Hong Meng immortal qi has fallen into Yi Xian's hands. If he becomes a saint, we will all be in danger. Emperor Jun, you should understand this. The Emperor of Fengdu said angrily. Alright, I'll believe you this time. However, if you dare to deceive me and hide the primordial violet qi, I'll bring the ancient demon court and charge into the netherworld, even if you return to the netherworld. I'll definitely make you die a graveless death. Emperor Jun said coldly and disappeared. Obviously, he was going to return to the ancient demon court to tell the news to the Eastern Emperor Tai. Although Emperor Jun wanted to go to the celestial court to find Yi Xian, he was no match for Yi Xian and several sages-to-be. He could only return to the ancient demon court to ask for help. Yi Xian, Zhu Rong muttered in a low voice. He didn't even glance at the Emperor of Fengdu before instantly disappearing. It was obvious that he wanted to send this news back to the shaman clan. The primordial violet qi definitely couldn't fall into Yi Xian's hands. Taoist Qing Tian left with a flattering smile. The two sages-to-be had already left. He was just a beginner in the saint realm. Even if he wanted to force the Emperor of Fengdu, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Without Emperor Jun and Zhurong by his side, he would be killed if he dared to do anything to the Emperor of Fengdu Du. As the three of them left, the Emperor of Feng, Du, clenched his fists. Blue veins appeared on his forehead, and his face turned purple. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from the Emperor of Feng Du's mouth. It was not because he was injured, but because he was played by Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. He was so angry that he finally spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Xian! Huang Maji! How dare the two of you play with me like this? I won't let the two of you off easily. Since I can't get the Hong Meng Immortal Qi, none of you can get it. The Emperor of Feng Du roared in anger. His expression was ferocious and terrifying. He made a crazy decision in his heart. Don't all of you want the Hong Meng Immortal Qi? I'll announce the news of Yi Xian obtaining the Hong Meng Immortal Qi to the three realms. I'd like to see how you deal with it. The Emperor of Feng Du roared angrily. He had already given up and made this crazy decision. Then, he instantly disappeared into the firmament. In the 9 layers of clouds, there were thousands of auspicious qi and auspicious clouds floating. A Taoist in green was covered in chaotic holy light. He was above the 9 heavens of Panzu without saying a word. The green-robed Taoist's appearance couldn't be seen clearly, but the aura that radiated from his body was extremely terrifying. There were also rumbling sounds coming from his body, which made people feel dizzy just by looking at him. My good disciple, I really didn't expect that not only did you become a sage to be, but you also walked the path of proving your Tao with strength. If you were given more time, wouldn't you surpass me? The Taoist in green muttered to himself. There were even sounds of praise coming from his mouth. I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such courage to walk the path of proving your Tao with strength. However, you have to cherish the Hong Meng Immortal Qi that I gave you. It's a treasure that can help you become a saint. Don't let me down. Aha! The Taoist in green laughed loudly. His laughter rumbled, and the boundless auspicious clouds dissipated without a trace. Clearly, the appearance of the Hong Meng Immortal Qi in the 3 realms was his doing. Otherwise, why would the Hong Meng Immortal Qi appear when Yi Xian broke the sky with a halberd? Not far away, not far away. You and I, master and disciple, will meet again soon. I wonder if you will be shocked when I appear in front of you? The Taoist in green smiled coldly. His entire body suddenly became illusory and gradually disappeared above the 9 layers of clouds. Chapter 724. The Celestial Emperor has no boundaries. Cheers and cries filled the celestial court as countless immortals and demon kings hurried to the Lingxiao Hall. In the Lingxiao Hall, the 3 demi-saints were seated high above. They were Kunping Kong Xian and Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Yi Xian sat on the central throne, accompanied by the Empyrean Fairy. The immortals of the celestial court were bewildered. Yi Xian had brought back 2 demi-saints, both of whom were extremely famous figures. The strength of the celestial court had soared. On the central throne, Yi Xian looked down at the group of immortals. His expression was neither sad nor happy. But as he looked at every immortal and demon king, they all hurriedly shifted their gazes away. Where is Shen Gongbao? Yi Xian asked softly. Shen Gongbao quickly stepped forward and bowed to Yi Xian. Your humble servant is here. Don't you have anything to say to me? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Your humble servant. Yi Xian's tone was somewhat unfriendly, which made Shen Gongbao's expression change slightly. A trace of bitterness flashed through his eyes, because he knew what Yi Xian was thinking. Ever since the ancient Fei court had reappeared in the world, many immortals of the Jie sect had been on good terms with it. Moreover, he had personally sent a congratulatory invitation. This kind of thing couldn't be hidden at all. Celestial Emperor, Shen Gongbao wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, he didn't explain himself. Clearly he had his own difficulties. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian tapped the table in front of him with his fingers, producing rhythmic sounds. However, an extremely oppressive atmosphere grew throughout the Lingxiao Hall, and the immortal and demon kings of the celestial court gradually fell silent. Immortals of the Jie sect stepped forward. Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke calmly. However, as soon as his voice fell, the immortals of the Jie sect changed their expressions slightly, but they still stepped forward one after another. Have an emperor, you? Shen Gongbao's heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling that something terrible was going to happen, which made him cry out in horror. But when he saw Yi Xian's merciless eyes, he swallowed his words. Time has changed. You immortals of Jie School have followed me for 70,000 to 80,000 years. Even if you don't contribute, you have worked hard. Yi Xian paused for a moment and then continued. However, I cannot tolerate sand in my eyes. Today, I will give you immortals of the Jie School a chance. If any of you want to leave the celestial court, you can leave. I will not stop you. Hiss. As Yi Xian's words fell, the sound of gasps immediately rang out. A large number of gazes focused on Yi Xian. Everyone's eyes were extremely complicated. Clearly, Jie School had secretly befriended the ancient demon court. This had already violated Yi Xian's taboo. Otherwise, Yi Xian would not have said that. Silence, silence, extreme silence. The Jie School, led by Shen Gongbao, was dead silent at this moment. They did not know how to answer Yi Xian, but everyone's eyes were filled with hesitation. Looking at the scene in front of him, Yi Xian slowly shook his head. He knew that the attitude of these immortals was not important. Clearly, any decision of the Jie School was the will of Tong Tian. Yi Xian also knew that Niwa had once looked for Tong Tian. This also made Tong Tian waver, so it affected the loyalty of the Jie School to him. Yi Xian was a very simple person. He did not need disloyal people. If his subordinates were disloyal, he might as well kick them out of the celestial court. This was how he conducted himself. The ancient demon court was too powerful, and was once the orthodox sect of heaven and earth. Moreover, Niwa had personally looked for Tong Tian. Only Tong Tian had secretly spoken. Otherwise, the immortals of the Jie School would definitely not have the guts to befriend the ancient demon court. Yi Xian understood this logic. You all can leave. Yi Xian waved his hand. This also made Shen Gongbao and the other immortals of the Jie School sigh. However, all of their faces were slightly pale, and there was a heavy look in their eyes. All the demon kings stepped forward. After the immortals of the Jie School left, Yi Xian spoke again. This also stunned the demon kings, but they still walked out one by one and bowed to Yi Xian. Among you, there are demon kings who once followed me in the lower realm, and there are also people who joined me, Yi Xian. However, you are all members of the demon race. This time, the ancient demon court has reappeared in the world. With the support of Saint Niwa, it wants to regain control of the three realms of heaven, earth, and man, and let the demon race become the overlords of heaven and earth again. Yi Xian spoke tirelessly. However, when the demon kings heard this, their expressions kept changing. No one knew what they were thinking. There are no two suns in the sky, and there are no two rulers in the people. The 33rd celestial court that I command will sooner or later fight with the ancient demon court. All of you are members of the demon race. It's extremely difficult for you to be caught in the middle. After all, you and I have been monarchs for tens of thousands of years. Today I will give you a chance. If anyone wants to leave the celestial court, I will not stop you. However, when we meet again in the future, if you join the ancient demon court, don't blame me for not taking into account our past relationship. As Yi Xian finished speaking, the entire Lingxiao Hall fell silent. Clearly, Yi Xian was reorganizing the celestial court and eliminating all the uneasy factors. Silence, silence, dead silence. This silence lasted for more than 10 breaths of time. Every demon king had a conflicted look on their faces. Just as Yi Xian said, they were members of the demon race. The ancient demon court was the orthodox demon race. Moreover, it had the full support of Saint Niwa. The two celestial emperors of the demon race were supreme existences. If they continued to follow Yi Xian, they would definitely bear the name of betraying the demon race. Moreover, since Niwa's decree had spread throughout the three realms, the billions of demons in the three realms had all submitted to the ancient demon court. How could they not know that they were caught in the middle? This made things extremely difficult for them. Celestial Emperor. Suddenly, a figure walked out. This person had a crocodile head and a human body. He was a great demon king with a cultivation at the fourth heavenly layer of the Grand Luo realm. He was called True Lord Crocodile Demon. Your Majesty, It's not that this subject wishes to leave the celestial court, but this subject is still a member of the demon race. If the two celestial emperors and Her Majesty Nuwa hadn't summoned the billions of demons, this subject would have followed you wholeheartedly. However, this subject does not wish to bear the name of betraying the demon race. I can only apologize to you today. Ashamed, True Lord Crocodile Demon knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Xian. Clearly, he was bidding farewell to Yi Xian. This was something he had been hesitating about for a long time. You have served this emperor for tens of thousands of years. Since you intend to leave, this emperor wishes you a bright future. Yi Xian showed neither killing intent nor anger. With a wave of his hand, he summoned Venus Tai Bai. A 3,000-year-old peach of immortality appeared, and he had Venus Tai Bai personally hand it to True Lord Crocodile Demon. This emperor rewards meritorious deeds and punishes wrongdoings. From this day forth, you are no longer a member of the celestial court. Consider this 3,000-year-old peach of immortality your reward for serving this emperor for tens of thousands of years. You may leave. Chapter 725. Celestial Emperor I? True Monarch Crocodile Demon's eyes reddened. He had never expected Yi Xian to give him a peach of immortality, even though he had already expressed his intention to leave. Go. If you join the ancient demon court in the future, you will be an enemy of the celestial court. I will not take into account our past relationship. I dare not make an enemy of the celestial emperor. From now on, I will live in seclusion in the lower world, and will not participate in the battle between the two celestial court. True Monarch Crocodile Demon's eyes were filled with tears as he turned and left the Lingxiao Hall. Old Minister is ashamed to face your majesty. However, as a member of the demon race, I cannot make an enemy of the ancient demon court. From now on, I will live in seclusion in the lower world. Another demon king bid farewell with a trembling voice. Yi Xian gave him a golden core and allowed him to leave. As the saying went, if there was a first, there would be a second. More and more demon kings stepped forward and bid farewell to Yi Xian. However, all of them had a look of shame on their faces. However, Yi Xian appeared very calm. He gave the golden core and immortality peaches to the demon kings who wanted to leave. Yi Xian did not stop them at all. He even gave them all kinds of treasures and allowed them to leave the celestial court. Soon, hundreds of demon kings bid farewell and left. Only half of the demon kings were left in the Lingxiao Hall. Is there anyone else who wants to leave the celestial court? Yi Xian looked around at the demon kings present. Celestial Emperor, I have been following you since the North Continent. Although the ancient demon court is the orthodox demon race, I, the sky-devouring toad, do not know who Donghuang Tai and Di Jun are. I will never leave you. The sky-devouring toad roared and turned to look at his brother, who was also one of the 10 demon kings of the Tongtian Ridge. What are you waiting for? Either continue to follow the celestial emperor, or get out of the celestial court. What are you talking about, big brother? Our cultivation is all thanks to the celestial emperor. The ancient demon court did not do us any favors, so we naturally have to follow the celestial emperor loyally. King Qingqiu scolded and directly knelt before Yi Xian. The 10 great monster kings of the past all followed suit and expressed their loyalty to Yi Xian. Your Majesty, although I have never followed you in the lower realm, I, the 9th extreme demon lord, was forced into a corner by the Chan school. If the celestial emperor had not taken me in, I would have died at the hands of the Chan school's immortals. Although the ancient demon court is the orthodox demon race, it has not shown me any kindness. I am willing to follow the celestial emperor, even if it means becoming enemies with the ancient demon court. The 9th extreme demon lord was once an evil demon. At this moment, he bowed to Yi Xian, and his voice was even more powerful. That's right. Although we are members of the demon race, the ancient demon court has not shown us any kindness. Instead, it was you, the celestial emperor, who has nurtured us for tens of thousands of years. If the ancient demon court declares war on the celestial emperor, we will definitely follow you to death. The three-eyed evil Immortal was a great monster king of the lower realm. At this moment, he was bowing 3 times to Yi Xian because he was able to break through the Daoyuo Jinxian, because Yi Xian had given him a 6,000-year-old immortal peach. He had never forgotten this kindness. Some monster kings left while others stayed. Yi Xian nodded slowly, and a satisfied look appeared in his eyes. The monster king Yi Xian, who had left, was not angry at all. This was because Yi Xian knew very well that the ancient demon court was the orthodox demon race. Moreover, they had the support of Niwa, a saint of the demon race. It was naturally difficult for them to be stuck in the middle. The people who stayed were the most loyal to Yi Xian. They were also the people who could truly be used by Yi Xian. Yi Xian naturally would not treat them unfairly. At this moment, the Jie school lineage was hesitant. Half of the celestial court's monster kings had left. It seemed like the celestial court's strength had been greatly reduced, but this was actually a good thing. This was because Yi Xian had to follow orders. If he really waited for the celestial court to declare war on the ancient demon court, these monster kings who had left might very well become a hidden danger. Perhaps they would give Yi Xian a fatal blow. Yi Xian had to plan ahead and take everything into account. This was because one had to settle the internal situation before dealing with external threats. This was the method that a superior should have. Alright, since you are willing to continue following me, I will naturally not treat you unfairly. In 10,000 years, the ancient demon court will start the myriad demon meet. I want you to quickly improve your cultivation in these 10,000 years, be it the immortal peach or the golden core. As long as it can improve your cultivation, I will give it to you. Yi Xian paused and looked directly at Grand Supreme Elder, Kuan-Peng, and the others. Fellow Taoists, you are all sage to be and have great divine abilities. In the next 10,000 years, I will have to trouble you to teach the monster kings present. Yes, your majesty. Kuan-Peng bowed, showing that he was duty-bound. Grand Supreme Elder and Kong Xian nodded in agreement. Obviously, when the myriad demon meet started 10,000 years later, the demons of the three realms would be loyal to the ancient demon court. The battle between the celestial court and the ancient demon court was unavoidable. The three sage-to-be had to teach the monster kings of the celestial court in the next 10,000 years. This was also to improve the cultivation and strength of the celestial court. Court is dismissed. As Venus Taibai's voice sounded in the Lingxiao Hall, the immortals of the celestial court took their leave. However, Shen Gongbao and the other immortals of the Jie sect were bewildered. Shen Gongbao even wanted to talk to Yi Xian, but Yi Xian had already left the Lingxiao Hall. Obviously, the attitude of the Jie sect was unclear. This was not the result that Yi Xian wanted. Even if Shen Gongbao explained it to him, it could not solve the fundamental problem. As for whether the Jie school should stay in the heavenly court, the only person who could make the decision was the Grand Master of Heaven. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the Aquamarine Palace, the sea of stars was turbulent, and the big stars were rotating. Yi Xian strolled in the luminous starry sky. With every step he took, he covered a distance of 10,000 miles. Until he stood in front of the Aquamarine Palace. There was no aura around him. Rumble. The door of the Aquamarine Palace opened with a rumble. Two Taoist children walked out of the door and bowed to Yi Xian. The patriarch knew that the celestial emperor was coming and ordered us to welcome you. Please. The two Taoist children opened the door and made an inviting gesture to Yi Xian. This also made Yi Xian nod and enter the Aquamarine Palace with a calm expression. In the Aquamarine Palace, the aura of chaos flowed endlessly, and the misty holy light rippled endlessly. There was nothing in the surroundings except for a green lotus floating in the void. On the green lotus, there was a stalwart figure sitting cross-legged. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of unhurried footsteps could be heard. Yi Xian walked along the bluestone path until he stopped. Then he looked at the person on the green lotus. Greetings, Tongtian. Yi Xian cupped his hands and bowed. His posture was neither humble nor arrogant. You're finally here. Tongtian's holy light covered his body, and he let out a long sigh. Hierarch knows why I'm here, Yi Xian said calmly. Yi Xian, you should know that you're walking the path of proving Tao with strength. Although this method does make your battle strength heaven-defying, a sage-to-be is only a sage-to-be. It's impossible for you to become a sage-to-be. The Jie sect was created by Miso Tongtian side and did not continue. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.